successful bidder has an issue, there's an issue with delivery of fuel as often as is needed. They're not in this community. The second bidder was Heritage FS, which is in this community, and that is the next item on the agenda. So what's pending is a motion to reconsider the previous granting of the bid, the fuel bid.
Okay. Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Baronis,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes. 6 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. We need number 3, an approval to accept Heritage FS bid for the fuel for the school buses.
So moved.
Moved by Gathing.
Second.
Second by Johnson. Any discussions or questions? Not, please call the roll.
Verret,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Baronis,
Yes.
Gathing,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes. 6 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. That gets us to the old business of the interview, and that's interviews with our 3 surviving search firms. And the first interview is with SEC, is my understanding. And we'll see if they're here and we can start.
Who's the first one?
Looks like this. School Exec Connect is their name.
Okay, wait. Well, these are backwards.
Should have been in order, right?
Should be on your table
In
in
order.
front of you.
Oh, okay, got it.
No.
And then I think that Rachel has listed the questions. I don't know, did any of the rest of you have questions that you wanted added to the list?
I was good with those.
I do.
Okay, what questions did you want to add?
I need to look over these first. I'm not even sure what's on here. So let me see.
Okay. What would be helpful is for each of you to choose a question that you will ask all 3 in all 3 firms, and then you can ask any other questions you want. But I think we need to have a comparison of apples to apples in the process.
Do you care which questions we ask?
I don't care whichever question you're going to ask, but if it's been asked, don't ask it again, I would say. I mean,
So where
not
did
to
these
the-
questions come from? Where do they come from?
These are draft questions that I received from others and that I have put together. Nobody else sent me any questions from the board.
Well, you got I was going to do the geographical, how far out are we going to go to try to find somebody? But you got that, so.
The first 1 through 4 are sort of the process questions. What are their processes? The second area, candidate pool, is 1 through 5. Questions about our school district is 1 through 7. General questions are 1 and 2 and 3, and then any other questions that you want, either directed to the application or the request or the proposal that's made, or from the information provided during this interview process.
Do we you want to know which question we want, each one of us wants?
We usually just,
Or you want to go?
we usually just go 1, 2, 3, and the next person just go down. That would take too long, everybody's trying to pick a question.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with, Chris, we can go, start
Yeah, I
there.
Start with 1, then the next person take 2,
That's
next
fine.
person take
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
Trying to
Just-
figure out the question, we're gonna be here long enough anyway.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't have a problem with that. Deb? Just go, yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Since there's 6 of us, we can just go in order. Start from the top, wherever we're.
If the question that you end up with is one that you do not want to ask for some reason, skip over it and go to the next one. Just say I'm skipping, so that we know where you are.
Okay.
Come up and have a seat and get ready.
I think we're ready. Good evening, welcome. Okay, good luck. I'm not the person you want.
So we have one on this side.
Oh, doesn't work.
Howard would be sitting.
Hi, folks, I'm Kevin Shinsky, person from Second Connect. I have someone coming in from the parking lot right now, so give me
Sure.
Absolutely.
a 5:30, so I apologize.
No, we jumped the gun, so you're all good.
Hey, no
Thank you,
problem at all.
thank you.
Plus, we have construction now, so you know. Note to self, do not come down Jeffrey.
So this section with other questions we can ask, anything else we want to ask, is that what that's for?
What are you talking about, other questions?
Just blank.
There's a bunch of them there.
There are more questions than we'll have time for, I'm sure. And some of the questions are better than others, but since we can't do this in open session. Yep.
I got a question about a couple, I want this, about a couple of these questions. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're, how they apply to a search form.
Okay, which one?
Which ones?
The one about,
Number 3 on page 3, the first one. And number 5 on the 3rd page.
number 6.
On the 3rd page, you said, I'm sorry, I'm looking.
Yeah, the 3rd page. You flip over to the 3rd page, the staple page. 3-5.
Our district is currently operating with an assistant superintendent of business and assistant superintendent of curriculum.
If the board wants to
7.
eliminate any of those questions, I think that's fine.
7,
Go back to number 3 on the first
page
page.
3. Yeah, the first one on the 3rd page.
Okay, you said 3 on page 1, right?
No, the 3rd page.
Third page.
Okay.
3rd page, the first question.
Our academics metric is shown. Our ESB school report card.
That might be
Okay,
a candidate question, not a search firm.
I'm all right. Does anybody want to not strike that one?
I think it's appropriate.
How? Just a search firm. the superintendent candidate, yeah. Search firm, how, you know, they can't answer for the candidate. If I'm wrong, tell me.
And the same with 5, 6, and 7 on the third page.
Well, this is all about our district. So
These are.
When they
these are
search for the candidate-
These are candidate questions.
I know, but when they're searching for a candidate, they don't ask any questions when they're searching?
I mean,
I don't know I've never done this, so I don't know, but
okay.
do they just take
They ask-
anybody?
They ask questions, but these particular questions should be for the candidate, not the search firm. If you agree or disagree, you know, now's the time to talk about it before we start talking to them.
I just think that, if they're going to ask questions of a number of candidates, I would think that you would have to go into detail with some of the things, especially all of these that are dealing with the district.
These may be questions that are more appropriate after the search firm is hired and then get direct
Right.
information regarding these.
Yeah, like 5.
Exactly
would
what
be-
I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I don't think it's necessarily candidates, but I think it's information that the search firm should have in its,
Well, I mean,
but
I think-
I'm all right striking it in terms of
yeah, I think they already,
5, 6, and 7. Strike
I
those.
think they've already searched this out and they know.
Well, we'll find more about that out.
I think they already know what they're talking about and what they're looking for. We don't have to be that specific.
Okay, which other ones did you want to strike?
5, 6, and 7, they said.
I've got 5, 6, and 7 stricken, and 3,
In 3,
okay? Those are about our district. Were there any others? Well,
I think number 6, because it is such a huge aspect of what we are going to be doing next year, I think we need to know if we have someone coming in that has familiarity in that aspect. That's a big project. And knowing the busing, our system now, I feel we need someone that at least has some kind of a background. So I feel they need to be able to search for someone that,
that can be a recruiting question, you know.
I think what I hear from Mr. Williams is he wants to ask those questions, or use that as information after the search team is hired,
With 6
so that when they're looking, they know about that information. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I don't know what the rest of you want to do.
I mean, any superintendent has to deal with transportation, so it's part of the job also, so.
but not
But not
running it,
necessarily-
not running it.
Yeah, running it.
Superintendents,
They
a lot
have-
of schools have their own busing companies.
Yeah,
We're just one of the ones that didn't.
I think the only issue is that this will be the end of the first year of that transition, but I'm all right. Why don't we get started and let our guests introduce themselves? And if you want to skip over those questions, there's others that can be asked. So it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Sandra Thomas, and I am with
Dr. Kevin Sachinsky. Oh, sorry, we'll get this over. Dr. Kevin Sachinsky, and one of our colleagues, as they say, had a flight coming back yesterday, Dr. David Negron, and what happened, his flight was push and push and push, and he is actually on the plane, and we do not think he's going to make it, so he apologizes. His flight got there, so he's our third consultant from School Exec Connect.
Okay?
so I am going
I
to
think
give,
that one will work. Pull it towards you.
There we go.
Right.
Now we're on. Yep.
Okay, there you go.
All right,
Perfect.
super.
Thank you so much.
well,
Have to lean over so far.
let me first start by saying thank you so much, Board, for giving us an opportunity to come to present today our proposal as it relates to School Exec Connect and what we can do to assist in hiring your next leader and superintendent in Kankakee School District. So I just want to discuss briefly with the board, basically what our firm has done across the nation. We were established back in 2004. We have done over 360 searches nationwide. We have more than 60 consultants that work with our search firm. And let me start by saying we have a very high success rate. Over 96% of our superintendents have remained in good standing once the board has selected them as superintendents in their organization. Every single search that we have completed has been on time and within the school district budget. Just a little bit of information about myself. Let me start by saying I would not have my credentials as Dr. Sandra Thomas had it not been for Kankakee School District, as I actually did my dissertation here in your organization back in 2005. I had the most dynamic principal that worked with me at the Montessori school that showed me the ways and the whys of why this district had high-performing, high-poverty students, but they were making the grades and it had such an enriched community. Just a little bit of information about me. I am the current superintendent of Echo Joint Agreement, which is a special education cooperative. My background is in the area of special education. I also was the superintendent of Country Club Hills School District 160, which is about 30 miles outside of Kankakee School District. In addition to that, I was the assistant superintendent of schools in Joliet Public Schools. Our background in Joliet Public Schools mirror Kankakee School District. I was an adjunct professor for 9 years at the University of St. Francis, and I am currently the vice president of the Superintendent Commission for the Demographic Studies. Here you go.
We were working.
He's working on you back there.
We're going to share. No problem at all.
And just switch mics,
Yeah.
that mic and that mic, on the other table.
That mic.
No, there you go.
Thank you so much. Problem solving at its finest. Thank you. My name is Dr. Kevin Shinsky. I'm one of the associates for School Exec Connect. I'm in my 8th year as a superintendent. During my service of over 30 years of education, I've worked both in urban and suburban school districts. Started my career in the Chicago public school system. Currently in a district that is in West Cook 40 in terms of that, which mirrors some of the demographics. I service 60% Latino students, 40% African American students, with about a 75% low-income rate. In terms of where I was at, I serviced this area. How do I know Kankakee? I spent some of my time out in this area as a principal in another district about 20 miles away. Certainly know folks in Wilmington, Peatone, Mantino, know all the folks. Have traveled up and down 57 as well as 80 for about 13 years of my career as administrator. As you can see there, I'm part of the IASA, also part of the School Advanced Leadership Program. The next candidate I'm going to talk about is Dr. Negron. He's worked with me before. We currently are doing 2 searches right now in terms of that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Dr. Negron. Dr. Negron is the Chief Financial Officer for School Exec Connect. Again, he apologized profusely. He has switched his flight 4 different times, and he apologizes for that. Dr. Negron's in the West Cook area along with myself. He's in his 8th year. He's got over 15 years of administrative experience. He's a bilingual, speaks fluent Spanish and English. He's also was named the 2018 National Association of Latino Administrators for Superintendents, was a finalist. He's on top of it also part of the School Advanced Leadership graduate in 2018, and he currently serves on 2 ISB boards right now. And so we're presenting to you as 3 candidates that have some unique experience, that are current superintendents that we feel will service you as a Board of Education in your next search.
So I'm going to take time to walk through the process. And as I was sitting here, I heard some dialogue as it relates to, the differences between candidate questions as it relates to the firm questions. But let's talk about the process. School Executive Connect will most certainly be working in tandem with the Board of Education. We will develop a superintendent leadership profile, and a part of that leadership profile would most definitely include, of course, the Board of Education. But we are also going to look at focus groups pertaining to our teachers, our support staff, our students, and our parents. And when we're doing the searches and we're having those focus groups occur, we only want about 10 to 12 individuals that will be seated on those focus groups. And we will get that information, of course, from individuals within the organization that will help us develop what those focus groups look like. In addition, we will conduct a community survey in which it will be done in both English and in Spanish. We are well aware that Kankakee School District has over 31% of their student population that of in our Spanish-speaking area. We will definitely have conversations both individually and as a group as a whole with the Board of Education. We are looking at candidates, and when we're looking at those candidates, we're trying to find the most adequate individuals that meet the skill set that matches any issues and changes that are actually occurring here in Kankakee School District. We conduct extensive background checks. We make sure that when we're doing our interviews with those candidates, that we're looking at individuals that portray the leadership skills, attributes, and characteristics that this board is looking for in a candidate. We will remain every step of the way with the board, also giving each of the board members our personal cell phone numbers as we're going through the process. And if there's any questions that we can answer, we'll make it our business to stop, drop, and roll to make sure that you have what you need to have in order to select the most valid candidate for Kankakee.
Just in terms of that, there were some conversations regarding candidates. What we're going to do is bring you a pool of candidates that usually represents either 4 or 6. The Board of Education will have a determination if you'd like to have 6, would you like to have 4? It could be somewhere in the middle of that. So when we're bringing you candidates, what will happen as School Does That Connect? Myself, Sandra, and David will vet all of the candidates who apply, go through that screening process with them. And again, remember, matching your leadership profile and bringing those to the superintendent and whether other groups that are going to be part of the interview process as outlined by the Board of Education. So as we now move to the searching of candidates, we start talking a little bit about the timeline. I think this Board of Education is in good shape to start the process now. And if you see up here is that all of this can be adjusted based upon the Board of Education feedback. It's really important that you create a schedule that meets the needs of your district. In terms of what we're hoping to do is present a little bit of a mock-up schedule, what it might look like. Meet in June 2023, meeting with the Board of Education, talking a little bit about what are your goals, what are your interests, what are you looking for. On top of that, once we start developing that, looking at September 23, beginning advertising, recruitment, developing that leadership profile. In between June and September is when we hold those forum meetings with all of your stakeholders, getting all the community data, getting the survey data. And that's what I like to do. What we'd like to do is you can run those applications into mid to late October. The great thing about this Board of Education, you're going to be on the first, as we call it, is the first interview process. It's very important to start earlier. Sooner you can get candidates to come in there because it holds twofold. It allows you to do some transition as you start bringing in a new superintendent who then can transition with the Board of Education as well as the current or the outgoing superintendent. But what we end up doing right here is that we present you a slate of candidates in November. And in this case, we're doing a current search right now. We did a initial and second interviews by late December and January. The Board of Education will have the determination to see how that is. We present a couple different options. Sometimes you can interview the candidates all in one day on a Saturday. Keep them fresh in mind. You might be able to split them across 2 days. Again, it's going to be your choice based upon what you're looking for. As we do that is in terms of you do your initial and second round interviews and you make your selection, then you can have your superintendent ready to go by July 1st, 2024. And again, if you decide, you can have transition days built in, and we can assist with that process. The most important thing here is that this schedule could be modified that meets your needs in terms of how fast you're going to go. But we're going to encourage you to try to get that and get in that what we call is the first wave in October to get that posting out there to draw a great group of candidates. As Dr. Thomas said, indicated that our network's pretty vast, not only in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. We'll draw candidates there, but you have 3 sitting superintendents who will be able to network. And what the benefit about School Does That Connect to do is that we can network. And that's one of our benefits we have where some of your search firms might not be able to do that because we have the ability to network with candidates and get the word out for your candidates. And that's a little bit of the timeline that you're looking at.
I know most people like to get to the chase. How much is this going to cost our organization? Yes. And so our consulting fees is listed there at $18,500. Let me express the fact that we are flexible as it relates to the cost of consulting fees. We have a regular expense of $2,750. We have never went over that amount. As a matter of fact, it has been a slightly lower. We do look at advertising costs because we wanted to determine and make sure that we're advertising the superintendent position here in Kankakee at vast different organizations, from the National Association of Black Superintendents to the National Association of our Latino American, as well as the Illinois Association of School Administrators. So we go out as far as we need to advertise for the position so that we draw in as many candidates that you can select from. In addition to that, as I discussed before, we do conduct an extensive background check, but we offer a third-party vendor as well in this process. Some districts like to also look at background checks that includes credit checks and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we offer that option to each of our boards. In addition to that, there are some guarantees that you will receive from School Exec Connect. We will guarantee in the event of our first slates, as Kevin discussed, we want to bring forth to you as many candidates that we possibly can that meets your expectations. And in order for us to do that, sometimes the board may wish to bring in other candidates other than the slate that had been pulled. We most certainly will continue to bring in candidates, again, at no additional cost but our actual expense to the board. There will be no additional consulting fees to do that. We will also guarantee that the superintendents in their first 24 months, if dismissed, we will start that search all over for this board if necessary at no cost to this board either. School Executive Connect guarantees that our consultants will not recruit your new superintendent in the duration of that individual being assigned to the board. And we guarantee that, again, we will be working side by side with the board throughout this entire process.
So a little bit about final thoughts, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the Board of Education to ask us some questions. What we want to do is, certainly as we talked a bit about that leadership profile, it's going to be really important that we develop that leadership profile with your stakeholders and Board of Education, because we want to find the leader that's best fits your community. I know we came in conversations regarding transportation, some other things that are going on with your district. What are some big initiatives? We want to match that fit of some ability. So we want to hire you an excellent superintendent to take over. What we're going to do is we're going to represent you throughout this process. Throughout there, you call one of the consultants. You don't have to call 3 consultants. You're going to call one consultant, and that information is going to pass on to the other. So you don't have to worry about making 3 phone calls. You make a call to Dr. Thomas. She's going to go ahead and give that to Dr. Negron and give that to myself and make sure that we're always on there. And that's where we're going to come back and make sure we're working with you all the way. That's really important. What we want to do is that I think what sets us apart is that we have a vast array in terms of our consultants who are acting superintendents. Some of them are retired superintendents, but a lot of our consultants are active superintendents or about to move on to their next career. And that's what we want to do. And we want to bring some people who are familiar with your district. You have Dr. Thomas who's familiar with that. I don't have as much familiarity, but have transverse in this area in terms of that. Have gone to enough athletic games with my own schools against Kankakee, but we certainly know the fit. We've done our research on your district and looking what your needs are. The last thing that we want to do is communications there. Whatever we need to do to communicate with you and make sure that we're fully transparent. I applaud this Board of Education to be fully transparent, so you have an audience here who knows exactly what you're doing, the process in which you're doing, and that's what we're going to do with you, is making sure we give you all the transparency in this process. Really, really important.
At this time, we'd like to open it up for questions that the board may have of us.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for the presentation. Who wants to start?
Right there.
Mr. Williams, you want to begin?
If your firm is chosen, what would be the next step involving the board?
So the next step we would do is if we were chosen and lucky enough to be chosen, we would schedule a meeting that's based upon your schedules in June. And at that meeting, obviously, it'd have to be an open session and engage in conversations with Board of Education in terms of what the calendar is going to look like, as well as what your focus groups might look like, as well as how you just start developing your leadership profile and start developing and planning those out, as well as getting some information from you regarding the number of candidates that you'd like to bring in, 4 or 6, what that process do. The more information we can have, the more we can plan that out for you. But that very first meeting is you're going to give us some really great information about, here's the initiatives, this is what we're looking for, and then we can plan those focus groups, which are really important to develop that leadership profile.
Ms. Frett?
I'll pass for now.
Pardon me?
I'll pass for now.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
I have some extra questions, but I'll follow the script for right now. Please describe the method your firm's going to use to obtain input from the staff, teachers, administrators, and the community at large. You touched on it, but
We did touch on it. One of the things that we choose to do is to make sure, one, that we're reaching out to the community and our stakeholders. So we will be doing surveys that will go out to the community, both in English and in Spanish. We will be hosting focus groups with teachers, with students. Students' voices sometimes are not heard, so we definitely want to hear from our students because I'm pretty sure they have leadership skills that have been developed here in Kankakee. They too have a voice. We want to make sure that we have support staff, secretaries, custodians, paraprofessionals, all those individuals that play crucial roles in our school system. We want to hear their voices just the same as we want to hear parents. But more importantly, our teachers. They're the ones that boots are on the ground working with our students every day. And we want to hear from them because they, I'm sure, want to have information about who their next leader is going to be in the organization. So we really are going to hone in on focus groups. We tend to try to do that within a day's time frame if we can, so that we can make sure that we're getting to each and every focus group. And then what we tend to do is once we gather all that information, we look for trends. What are the trends that we are seeing that are coming from our parents, our students, our administrators, our teachers, our support staff? What trends are we seeing that are coming from them that they feel should be a part of that leadership profile that we should be looking for? So I guarantee you that we are looking at all facets of a school system to help us determine what that leadership profile looks like, and of course, each and every last one of the board members' perspective about who they would like to see as their next leader will also be garnered. Did I answer your question?
very well, yes. Except once you get all the surveys out, compile all the information, then what's the next step then?
So.
That would be a hard thing to do.
100%. So that since we have a survey that's proprietary, we won't share those results because those are questions specific to Zoo Exec Connect. But again, we're going to look at those salient themes and those trends that we're seeing there and develop there, and we're going to be able to present that back to you. But hopefully we're going to gather tons of data and try to incorporate that within a leadership profile. Really important. And segregate that data by each of those stakeholder groups,
Okay,
which will take us some time.
yeah, that's why I asked, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Bronis?
I'm going to jump questions here just to follow up on something that you said earlier regarding if we aren't successful in finding a candidate, you said, or someone had to leave within the 24-month period, you would assist in second rounds. If we aren't able to find a candidate by our deadline, what's the step? what would happen next at that point?
So I think when I talked about a little bit about that schedule is starting in October, there are 2 windows that you can start interviewing candidates. There was that October window and that January window. You can continue keeping that search open, continue having us screen candidates, setting up that next set of interviews for finalists of 4 to 6. So we would move into that second window, they call that, in that January and February, but hopefully we don't get that way. Now you say to yourself is, well, what happens after the first window? And then the second window, is that the question you're posing?
Right, would you provide, would you assist us in finding an interim? Or?
We would certainly provide you opportunities, and that's where some of our consultants, our retired superintendents, be able to work with you there, as well as a plethora of who you can certainly bring on as an interim superintendent. We will work with you hand in hand for that part. But what we're hoping to do is set out this net really wide right now, get this information out, get as many candidates as we can, start screening them, so you're going to have a plethora of candidates to really look at.
Ms. Ferret, have you landed on a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple questions. So the first one is, how do you ensure that you are choosing a diverse background of candidates?
And we noticed in Kankakee's data that you have 70% or more minority students here in Kankakee School District. So understanding that David Negron, who has his background in the field of education, myself and also Kevin, we have an opportunity to reach out to respective organizations that we are all a part of to try to make sure that the information about Kankakee Superintendent is open and that we're looking for a wide variety of different candidates. But we also do understand that we're looking for the best candidate as well. And sometimes that may mirror over any ethnicity, because we are looking for the best candidate, as the profile would tell us from what the staff provided as well as from what the board has given us. So we are connected between all of us. I think we're about 12 different organizations out, that we have a far reach of getting to candidates that we can sway towards Kankakee based off of their experiences, and then, of course, what you're looking for.
And then my second question was, I think I missed I was writing, I think you touched on your percentage of making connections and hires, but how long has those hirees stayed in place?
So Kevin, you can speak to that a little bit more.
So in terms of where we're at, I think you were referring to, let me get to it, to the 96 success rate. That
yeah.
means that they were at least in their first contract and remained in that first contract. Every district does their contract different. Some do a 3-year contract. That will be where, in terms of where they're at. So we're looking in that phase of 96% staying within that 3-year contract.
And then one more, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And then you said that as far as recruitment, you don't do it the first 2 contracts, but after that you will?
Correct. So we would not go back and actively recruit your current superintendent for any of our searches for their first contract and actually their second contract for there. So we're not going to actually try to go back and quote unquote steal your candidate to bring them somewhere else. That's not what we're looking to do. We don't make business that way. Our goal is to have people stay long term. So you're talking to some superintendents 8 years. 8 years, usually the round for superintendents is about 4 to 6 years, I will tell you.
Yep, yep. Okay,
That's where the statistics are at right now.
yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Gathing?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you recommend the involvement of the school board and the stakeholders meeting and the input?
Well, we certainly think it's essential. We cannot find candidates without having direct input from all of our stakeholders. And some of that direction will actually come from the board. The board knows which stakeholders, I believe, that they feel within a community that have been essential partners with the organization that we should reach out to and get input from. The board is more than aware of the administrative team, as well as the staff and parents and parent involvement groups, parent advocacy groups within our community that we may need to touch base with. But we most certainly feel that all aspects of the components that you just mentioned are essential for us to build a leadership profile, but while at the same time making sure that we get that information and dissect through that data and provide what trends we are seeing to the board so that you are transparent as to what individuals are informing us. That will help shape your decisions as well.
So you can see that our first meeting is with the Board of Education to kind of give us that guiding North Star. So we can lay all those groundwork out there for you. So that's why it's essential to have the Board of Education be on the first meeting.
Okay.
This is a minor question, but let me follow up. In terms of what Jess just asked, do the board members participate in the other stakeholder meetings, or do we expressly not participate?
You do not. You participate in the Board of Education stakeholder meetings. You do not participate in the student, the staff, or the other ones. And the reason why that is we want authentic, honest feedback.
Sure.
Okay.
That's what we want.
But please know that we will bring back the trends that
To
we
you.
are finding in those respective groups.
So you'll know the data based upon that, but we certainly want a free opportunity where people can speak freely.
And from those trends and that database is where we develop the,
Leadership profile,
Yeah.
and then you'll be able to see those leadership profiles and be able to look at that and see if that matches all the other trend. So then we can establish that, and we will publish that leadership profile for all of the candidates who are applying to understand what Kankakee D111 is looking for in a successful superintendent.
Mr. Williams, you want to go again? I think we've wandered off all of our script.
Yeah, we
so-
did.
It's okay.
So whatever you want to have.
We're flexible.
It's fine.
My question is about CBE. Our school district currently is using CBE. That would be something that you express in your search for a candidate. You know, if they have familiarity with CBE.
So one of the things that I'm totally aware of, learning anywhere at any time, yes, that's Kankakee Way. But yes, we are very much familiar. There's a very few school districts in the state of Illinois that practice that comprehensive approach. Round Lake being one, in which I was a consultant in for a couple of years. So I'm very much familiar with the platform as it relates to that comprehensive learning base. Also, in addition to that, the opportunity to give children the wherewithal to continue to work towards proficiency without being penalized. And sometimes some school districts have a component where you're one and done. And what I mean by that is you get to take this test, you either failed or you passed it. If you failed it, oh well, we're moving on, and then we'll help you catch up along the way. This approach that Kankakee utilizes gives children and their parents the opportunity to work to proficiency. We're looking more at student growth proficiency opposed to a one and done approach. And typically when you're entering into the college format, it's similar, where you just don't get an opportunity to fail. There's other components that are built in that gives you that latitude. And it's mirroring some of what is occurring in the college sector. So we're very much familiar with that process. And if, Kevin, you want to add to that, you may.
No, I think the trend data here is like when my own district, we use a platform for growth data from we're looking at historical data from a student who's from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade to look at that trend data. We also take a look at that. So however named you want to use it, everyone has used different names, but I think we're a true believer in the importance of proficiency and the idea of growth of students, of where they're at and where do we take them at. And I think the superintendent candidates that bring them in will have that same philosophy. Your district may have a very specific component and model you want to follow. That is the job of that new candidate to get caught up with the speed in terms of what your direction is as a Board of Education. As you know, your one employee is who? Is your superintendent.
Superintendent.
So you're going to guide that in terms of what you're hoping to do, and you're going to set that vision and set the goals for that superintendent.
That was one of the issues that concerns me is that, you know, we get a superintendent here that understands CBE instead of someone that don't believe in it at all. Because I think the one and done is hurting a lot of kids.
Ms. Johnson, do you have another question?
I'm going to combine a couple because they're both kind of
Sure.
about the candidates. Geographically, you said you recruit the whole nation. Is there a specific geography area? If we're going to focus on CBE, I don't know how many states have
Correct.
CBE. And then, do you have any knowledge of a pool of candidates that would fit that criteria?
Until we get the search out, obviously, School Exec Connect has done most of their search in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, has been our 3 primary states we've been at in terms of that. Certainly, we're not actively pursuing candidates with one philosophical approach from that. That's going to come in the screening, and we're going to paper screen. We're going to screen every single applicant that comes in. And so if one of those leadership profiles is to have that mindset, because we're talking about a mindset and a philosophy, and that's what we want to be able to do and screen candidates that match. If they don't have that mindset, we're not going to bring that candidate there if they don't fit the leadership profile. But I do believe that every superintendent who may not have had that opportunity to go in there, it's the idea of buying into what you're hoping to accomplish for your students and having someone come in to buy into your philosophy and say, I'm all in with both feet. Jump into the deep end.
Let me follow up too with that. You've worked with a lot of candidates, you've worked with a lot of people.
Correct.
Do they, and I know this is a loaded question, but do you think they respect your company? So when they reach out to you, when they see that there is an opening for superintendent in Kankakee, will they reach out to you and have you work with them? I don't know how to answer.
So if you can see that is established in 2004, they've done over 360 searches already. So if you go back and look on School Exec Connect site, you'll see in 2022, 2023, all the searches they've done, which is over 20. And so I think they have a reputation on there. The other 3, the firms that you're bringing in, all have great reputations, and I think all 3 have reputations. And it's about the candidates and your folks that you're working with and who you feel comfortable with. I will not say anything poorly about the other companies, but they do great work. And I think it's just a matter of that maybe our approach might be a little bit different, but there's some similarity, and it's your comfort from there. So do I think that School Exec Connect has a great reputation? Yes. Do we have people calling us? We're currently in a search right now. Small district, very small, very rural. Over 65 superintendents applied for the position.
Yikes.
And we spent a day and a half screening candidates and going from there and getting the right candidates. So we're in that final phase. So I think all the firms that you're going to be working with have a great reputation. They place very high. We have some guarantees that we're going to say is that if it doesn't work out, we're going to do it free of charge. That's what we want to do. We want to guarantee, we want the best person for you. We want someone who's going to stay with you.
So you said Illinois,
Wisconsin,
Minnesota.
Minnesota was the main 3 that we work out of.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Baronis, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just going to read off our questions here. Our district currently is operating without an assistant superintendent of business and an assistant superintendent of curriculum. Will it be easier to recruit if these positions are filled or left vacant?
That's a depend question. I have my chief school business official endorsement, as well as special education, superintendent, curriculum, human resources. I have every last one of those certifications that a board is looking for. But often, what you will find that is when a superintendent does come in, and if those positions are open, they may want the latitude to be able to build a team. And giving that person the opportunity to do so might be essential for the organization. And so I said it's a depend question because it actually depends upon what the board actually wants as well. Does the board want those positions filled prior to the superintendent leaving, or does the board want interim positions for those positions until a candidate is named, and then we move forward with hiring for those respective positions? It's a depend question, and it depends on the direction of the board. And so that, I think, is why I'm a little bit vague with answering it, because some boards will want the superintendent coming in to build a team. But it depends. And so I'll just kind of leave it there.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, fair
Ms.
enough.
Brett?
It's a ditto for me.
Can we stick to what we agreed to? The questions that we're going to strike,
Okay.
please?
That was, I didn't,
That was one of the ones that we said we were going to strike.
and that was, I thought it was a good question, the way it was worded.
We agreed to strike it, just like we discussed before, superintendent wants to bring their own team in.
No problem.
So can we?
Ms. Ferret, do you have a question? No. Okay. Mr. Gathing?
Back to CBE. If in our search, our school district, I do believe our board is fully CBE. I do believe that we are. And then, so in our search, we need to say, if you don't have CBE, then only CBE people apply. Is that something that, I mean, can be said or done?
So if you want to add that part of your leadership profile,
Well, I mean, we don't want, well, that we're CBE, our school's CBE, and
So
so
you're gonna
others
build-
need not to apply. if you-
Correct. Correct. And they'll know your philosophy behind it. And
Right.
it's something that's really important to place on that leadership profile with your stakeholders, if that's such a crucial part of that one. And that might eliminate some candidates who may not apply.
Right,
And
okay.
even if we do have candidates that did apply, that said they had that CBE background, trust we'll screen that because
Okay.
you can tell if someone actually knows what CBE is instead of the jargon behind it. It's a whole different philosophy.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Let me follow up with a couple. Will you be giving us, advice is too strong a word, but suggestion, I guess, is a better word. If we, for example, if we say we only want somebody that's going to live here, we want residency, and you say that's going to, will you tell us if that's going to limit our candidates, whatever that number, it may be CBE, it may be whatever, and we may decide that's really important. But
Correct. And the two searches we're doing right now, we'll ask direction in terms of the board wanting someone to live in the community or not. We're going to give you the pros and cons of how that might maybe reduce the number of candidates who might be there. We're going to talk about all components of that and what we've seen in our previous searches before. We will be quite honest with you. You're going to ask us as your consultants to give you that feedback. We're going to give it to you.
there may be other issues other than residency.
100%. We're all going to do it. And then you're going to let us know how much you want us to bring us in and how much direction we need. And we're more than willing to serve you in many different capacities in terms of our knowledge. And we're going to tell you what is the statistics behind there and what we're looking at.
Without going, the second question, the follow-up I have, without going into details of proprietary information, but the question about background checks is pretty significant, I think, to all of us in light of social media and all the other things that pop up sometimes after the fact. Tell us about that. Again, I'm not asking proprietary,
Yeah.
but a general concept of what we can expect on a background.
So there's two. So the first phase that Dr. Thomas talked a little bit about is our regular search that we'll do. We'll check all the reference checks from there. We'll go behind the scenes of who know candidates and who doesn't know candidates. We'll reach out to them. Is there going to be some information that we may not know because of separation agreement? We're going to dig for that information for you. That second phase that you're going to pay that additional money is going to go back and go a little bit deeper, and you're going to have to decide, do you want to pay that extra money? That lets us know to get a little bit more. We're going to do all of our social media searches before we even start talking to a candidate. So we're looking at as much as we legally possibly can look at.
Thank you.
Mr. Boland, I got to follow up with the CBE. You made a comment that not very many schools have CBE. I think, you hinted at it. I don't know if you said it specifically. Is that going to cause a problem, us trying to find someone who has, it's going to narrow our pool down quite a bit if we're just focused on CBE as a criteria for them coming to us to even be interviewed?
Well, I think that despite the fact that there may not be calling it CBE, there are districts that are practicing some of the same philosophy, but they're not titling that CBE. There are several school districts that are looking at student growth profiles. There are several districts that are data walking. There are several districts that are giving students the opportunity not to fail. Like you've been hearing all over the world, failure is not an option, right? Some of that philosophy behind that work and Blankenstein work indicates that that is exactly it, giving children an opportunity to excel. So even though they're not using the word CBE, you will find candidates that do have that same philosophy. They may not have went through the grant process. They may not have went through the professional development process that the state makes us go through to receive those components, but they most certainly have similar philosophies. But I don't think it will limit some of the candidates that come forth to Kankakee School District.
Would it focus just on Illinois, or do Minnesota and Wisconsin have some type of, the same
I
type of
definitely
concept?
know Minnesota
So
does.
100%.
Because I have actually a family member that is a superintendent in the state of Minnesota, so they do use that philosophy there. So that I can tell you for sure.
Okay.
Minnesota is one of the states that do use that philosophy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, one more round if we've got questions. Mr. Williams, any other questions you want to ask?
No.
Okay. Deb and Ms. Johnson, any other you want to ask?
I noticed on your timeline, you said October is when you're going to narrow the group down?
So what you would do is you'd go back and by October, close that search and begin that process of doing that interview process, where then you can name a superintendent in either by January.
Is that early enough for us?
In our experience, I think that you close in October will give you enough to get on the first wave of candidates 100%. It is a traditional timeline. I was on that October.
Okay.
So Dr. Thomas was on
Okay.
there. And it gave us an opportunity.
On both superintendencies.
Gave us an opportunity to then intergage, to attend board meetings, work with the public, and have the opportunity to really entrench ourselves with there, and that's what you're looking for. That's why building some of that transition, and you'll determine what that transition is going to be as a Board of Education.
I'm so sorry, I just thought of the question I was going to ask. Since we are a very diverse school district, I feel that's important for us to, in a candidate, that they're used to a diverse community instead of one that doesn't. Is that, well, that's up to us to let you know about that.
That's going to be on, if that's is across the board for your stakeholders, will be on your leadership profile. It will then be someone reflective of working with a diverse population of students, and that might be one of your action items on your leadership profile. But again, it's you and your stakeholders making those decisions.
Ms. Baronis, did you have any other questions?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Farrett, anything further? No. Okay. Mr. Yathing?
The question, the earliest a superintendent could come in, is that something that we decide, like if we wanted them to start in January? Is that something that's doable? Because coming in here, we don't want them to come in on July 1st. So if we wanted them to start in January at the earliest, or maybe March.
So remember, if you're dealing with an existing superintendent and a
Then-
contract
yeah,
already,
that's-
they're
yeah.
in an existing contract already where there may be penalties to leave that contract early. And so there is a domino effect that you have. That's what we put on the slide of you talking about what that transition looks like.
Okay.
All of the superintendents have time, whether it's vacation time, personal time, that we can take to interface with the district. But obviously, someone would have to leave their existing contract to start early. Until we get there, we won't know. So I can't give you an
All right,
answer.
thank you.
It'd be unfair for me to say yes or no or give you a direction.
However, just as Kevin indicated, there is an opportunity to have transition time, so that if in fact there is a time frame that you're looking for around that March time frame, we will definitely have to inform the candidates of that, so they don't eat away at their vacation time, knowing that they're going to need to have some of that vacation time in order to make some transitional time with this organization.
Okay,
Yeah,
Got to limit the ski trip, right?
that's right. You want to be here, you're going to have to make some concessions.
Okay. Dr. Thomas and Dr. Suchinsky, you've been very helpful. I know we've taken your time and the proposal took time, but we really appreciate your interest in our school district. We think we have a great district and we're looking for a great new leader.
We appreciate the opportunity to present in front of you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We wish you the best of luck, whatever firm you determine on. I think you got to do what's best for Kankakee, and we do believe in your district. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So best of luck.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much.
Plug electronics now.
Thank you, sir, so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have to get the flash drive, and that's about it.
Thank you, sir, for having us.
And then we'll pay with the flash drive.
Congratulations to you. I do know you, and you were here back when I did my dissertation as well, because I had to take
I wasn't on board.
going to teaching, and you were.
We go with that.
Yes, we do. Very well, how are you? Thank you so much. Patricia Vineyard, pleasure to meet you.
Hi.
Hello, Patricia Vineyard.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Pleasure to meet you.
Hi, I'm Al Mulvey. Nice to meet you.
That's my,
Good evening.
in between snack. In between snack.
This is a pleasure to meet you, Patricia. Pleasure to meet you, Deb. Patricia Vineyard, sorry. that's all.
I heard all the other ones.
How are you? Hi, Al Mulvey. Nice to meet you.
Susie Burrow.
Hi, Suzie. Nice to meet you. Al Mulvey. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Next one.
Does anybody need 5 minutes, or you ready to go on in?
Thank you, sir.
You ready to go, or you need 5?
We're with Illinois Association of School
I got you.
Boards.
I was gonna make sure I had the right
IASB.
one.
Yep.
Mr. Williams, Ms. Ferret, are you ready to go, or do we need, you need 5 minutes?
You guys have audio on your presentation?
We do not. We do not. So can you just remind me
thank
how
you.
I'm advancing?
Left and right, so one look forward, right, back, left.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Your mouse will do the same thing, too. So
Thank you.
By accident, either which way is
Okay.
wrong or right.
Thank you. Around if I hit something
Right back.
accidentally. Excellent, thank you. Testing.
Okay. Everybody ready? All right. Have at it.
All right.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. We are here representing IASB, or the Illinois Association of School Boards. We'll introduce ourselves first, and then we will start. My name is Patricia Vineyard. This is my 41st year in education. I have been a teacher, general education, and special education. I have been a principal, an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and in 2013 came up to the southwest suburbs as superintendent of LaGrange Highlands. I retired in 2019 and came on board with IASB, their executive search department. That is all we do, is executive searches. I have worked in a district, I was assistant superintendent in a district very similar in all complexities, size, free and reduced lunch, diversity. Was assistant soup for a number of years in a district very similar to Kankakee. I'll let my colleague Al Mulvey introduce himself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Appreciate the chance to be here tonight. As Trish said, my name is Al Mulvey, and I too am a retired superintendent. I've been with IASB for 8 years now, doing superintendent searches and executive searches primarily in the northern part of the state, a lot of the suburban area. I was a superintendent in suburban Cook County in Hillside Elementary District for many years. I'd been the principal before that. I was an assistant superintendent, started my career as a teacher and a coach, and retired after 40 years in education, and then I've been doing this for the past 8 years. So appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and talk to you about how we could work with your district.
Absolutely. And our resumes are on the right side at the back if you would like any more particulars about where we've been and for how long. I think it's the second to last and third page to last on the right side of your folder. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And my colleague Al is going to do the first few slides.
Thank you. And as I'm sure most of you know, as far as the School Board Association, we really are the only organization that our goal is to work with you as a school board in all aspects of your responsibilities. Our responsibility, obviously, is the executive search area, but we have a variety of other departments within IASB that also we all work together for the betterment of school districts in the state of Illinois. And that's our main goal, is to work with you. We're your association, and so we feel that our process is truly representative of you as a board.
And just to add to that, you are members of IASB and you pay dues to IASB. And so that's why we are less than the for-profit firms. You're already paying for the services to be a part of IASB. And we already have publication departments. We already have a lot of departments that are already in existence because you're a member of IASB. So that is, and we're not for profit, and so that is why we tend to be significantly less than the for-profit firms.
As you can see from the slide that's up there now, we feel that, and we know statistically we're the market leader as far as searches go throughout the state of Illinois. We only serve districts in Illinois. That we work with the 850 districts in a variety of capacities, but they're the only ones that we serve, although we do attract candidates from across the country, and we'll talk more about that as we go through our presentation. We've been doing this since the 1960s, and so we've been doing it the longest of all of the different firms, the for-profit firms, as well as other organizations. We've been doing it longer. All of our consultants together, we have over 300 years of combined consultant experience in education. We are an equal opportunity employment search agency. We're dedicated to maintain the confidentiality of candidates as well as the board. And so we think that's a very important part of the process. And that allows us to attract a very large pool of candidates because we do provide that confidentiality throughout the process, especially early on as we work through the screening of applicants to get to the candidates that we're going to present to the board. As a board member, chances are you're familiar with the foundational principles of effective governance, and as a board member, you know that your main job is to employ a superintendent, and that's why we're here to help you with that. I made reference to the fact that we attract candidates from across the country. This shows you over the past 10 years the candidates that have come from other states as well as in Illinois and entering into search processes in the state of Illinois. We have found that when a candidate or when an applicant is interested in relocating to Illinois, first place they look is on our website and IASA's website, the school administrator's website, and we are linked together in that as far as our vacancies. So we know that they look to us when they're interested in relocating to the state of Illinois.
And no need to check it out now, but just to draw your attention to something that's on the left side of your folder, and it's looks like it's a letter that has NASS, N-A-S-S, at the top of it. I'm holding it up right here. We are a very active member of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. So sometimes folks might think we're only Illinois-based, therefore how can we vet, how can we recruit and attract really great candidates from other states? And it's through this organization. 40 states belong to NASS. We have an annual conference. We network on best practices, problems, what have you. But a really important part is getting our vacancies out to them, out to those states and out to those consultants, and also being able, they call us, we call them to say, hey, there's somebody from your state we have applying. What can you tell me about them? Can we do some vetting of them? So we always like to mention that we're a really active member of NASS.
And that has also really expanded the network from which we're able to advertise and promote the vacancies that we're working with in the state of Illinois through the other 40 states that are a part of this organization. And we really work hard at attracting and recruiting diverse top quality candidates. We are able to represent IASB in a variety of different areas that potential candidates are attending or are at. We work through different professional organizations, through networking events that we are able to be a part of, through our III conference in the fall, as well as working with the Principals Association for the state, Business Officials Association, and also the national level of all those organizations as well. The National Affiliation Superintendent Searchers, Dr. Vineyard made reference to just previously. We are very active in AASA, the School Administrators Association at the national level. We are always a part of seeking out candidates who are at that organization's conference and are looking at relocating to Illinois too. So we interview candidates on site at AASA. We also hold a professional advancement seminar 3 times a year, combined with IASA, to get potential superintendents, those who are ready to enter into the field. And so they come into our day-long workshop, and we get a chance to know them and meet them even before getting a chance to assess their application and their interest in positions. And also, we are able to reach over 7,000 potentially interested candidates through our emails, through a mass email system that we use. And so we really, going back to what I said as far as only serving districts in Illinois, we have a very, very strong network outside of the state of Illinois to attract quality candidates.
Yeah, I would agree. And this is essentially just kind of a thumbnail sketch of the local, state, and national places and ways that we recruit, attract and recruit diverse, top quality candidates.
This shows you kind of a graphic representation of some of the organizations where we advertise, and we're linked to a variety of job sites through these organizations, not only IASB and IASA, the school administrators, and the NASAs we referenced, but also through promoting the position through K-12 JobSpot, through the Latino organization for school administrators, through the Black Educators Organization for school administrators, and we're able to reach a variety of different groups through that.
Okay, so I'm going to take over and pivot now to our process. So a couple of things. Number one, on the right side of your packet, I think it's the top sheet, and it says Illinois Association of School Boards Executive Searches Proposal Summary. And it looks like this. I'm holding it up. It should be the top sheet on the right side. If you want to, or if you're interested, although it's also up on the screen, this is essentially a skeleton outline of our process in order. And you will see that there are 2 designations. There are diamonds and there are boxes. The diamonds are aspects that we include in all searches. We call it part of our standard search. And I say that with the caveat and meant to lead with this. This is your search. This is not our search. So we have a process. It's tried and true. It's very well honed and refined. But at the same time, it's your process. And if there's something you want to talk to us about tailoring, we're here to accommodate you. You are the client. But by and large, the bulleted or the diamond items are done with all searches. The ones that have a box on that sheet are optional because we want it to meet your needs. No 2 boards are alike. No 2 searches are alike. No 2 timelines are alike, dynamics in the community, what's going on, and therefore we make some components choice, a la carte. Would you like this component? Would you like that component? We often go into a presentation like this and we say, we have a couple of aspects we would like to recommend, but again, that's all they are is recommendations. It's your decision. I will also add, if you decide to go with IASB, we would absolutely love to partner with you in this process. You don't have to decide right away which if any, optional pieces you would like to participate in. Some boards, and it's not unusual to say, we would like to partner with you, we would like to hire IASB. Could we decide later, maybe in the fall or as it gets closer, could we decide about some of these other optional pieces? And we say absolutely. So this is the sheet I drew your attention to is essentially a summary of what you'll be seeing up here. So you see the standard search. We're very upfront and open and transparent about our fee. It's enrollment-based, and so the standard fee for a search for your school district would be $8,900. We have recommended, from our perspective, a couple of other pieces we think you might be interested in that we would recommend for you. That would bring the total cost to $13,400. You might choose none of those, some of them, some others that we didn't recommend. So I would say that the final amount is to be determined based on your wants and your needs. So in order, you would get a dedicated search coordinator. You would get a lead coordinator, and that would be me in the case of this search. I'd be honored to work with you and would be very excited to facilitate the search and get you the best possible person to succeed Dr. Walters. We always have a couple of other folks in the background who you tend to not see other than the night of the presentation. But I'll tell you more about that because we don't have one person do the vetting, do the interviewing, do the things that we do to make sure these folks are quality and have everything they need and are what they seem to be. But you have a lead coordinator. One of the first things we would do is establish a timeline. If we are selected to work with you, one of the first things I would do is send a sample, a suggested timeline, maybe a couple of them, and then you say, yes, we like this part, maybe could this be earlier or later, or wait a minute. What we do to develop the timeline is two things. Number one, we start with the end in mind. When would you like to have the superintendent hired? You'd be getting it on the first wave. There are waves of these hirings. Perhaps you've heard that from other consultants or firms. Starting this summer is the first wave. There'll be another wave late, like around winter break time, holiday break time, and then there's often, and certainly this year, there was another wave in the spring. So at least two to three waves. It's excellent to get in on the first wave, which you would be. I think that's just the most advantageous. So we then say, because of that, when would you like to have the person hired? At your December board meeting? At your January board meeting? Right now, that would be my guesstimate, that you would like a semester of onboarding and a semester of time for overlap with the person coming on board. So we start with the end in mind. You tell us when you would like to have the person hired, and then we backtrack all of our activities from there. That's number one. The second thing that we look at, are your existing board dates. This is a lot of work. There's extra, like this is extra. When you're hiring a superintendent, there's a lot involved. So whenever possible, we don't want you to have a special board meeting. You already have to have a special board meeting when you're doing first round interviews and when you're doing final round interviews and anything else that you might want to have. If we can incorporate into an existing board meeting when we bring you some information, when we bring the announcement of vacancy, when we bring the slate, we try like the Dickens to make sure you don't have to have extra special board meetings unless absolutely necessary. So that's just a little about the timeline. Next thing, what do we want to do first? We want to help you identify what exactly are you looking for in the candidate to succeed Dr. Walters. Their qualities, their skills, their experiences, what they've done, who they are, how they communicate. And again, no two searches are alike. And that's one thing, even though this is all we do is help districts recruit and hire superintendents, no two searches are exactly alike. They're all different in some ways. So to start getting our arms around exactly how you want to advertise this, we survey and interview board members, and we administer an online survey of staff, faculty, parents, community members. We can also do high school students or students if you want to, and we absolutely offer them in multiple languages. So not just English, if you want it in, I think we've done up to 14, 15 different languages, and can accommodate those in any language. So that gives us really good information regarding what are you looking for? What are some of what are some of the aspects, characteristics? Do you want them to have had teaching and principal experience, previous superintendent experience? What areas would they say that are really their passions and that you're looking for their passion and skill be? Last bullet on that page, it says optional and it says recommended. In a lot of districts choose a couple of our optional pieces, and this is one, and it is we come in district and conduct in-person focus groups with stakeholders. And this really fleshes out what the online surveys tell us. It's much richer, it's much deeper, and again, we can provide these in have translators to meet with folks and in their native language. So however you normally do parent meetings, we would absolutely mirror that and want to attract and hear from as many stakeholders as possible. And so because of the number of schools that you have, we would bring in 2 consultants, so it's $1,500 per consultant, and so it would be an additional $3,000. I will mention now, in case I forget to say this later, we have no additional costs. There's no travel, there's no mileage. It's an all-in. Once you decide if you're going with us, here's the rate, here are the additional pieces we want. It's that amount exactly and no more.
This focus group step is often very important for your community. They really feel like they've been a part of the process right from the beginning if they have a chance to provide input at these meetings, and staff as well, beyond the online survey. The survey is good. It's a way to get that input, but these focus group meetings also allow a little bit more personalized type of time with these groups, so they feel like they've really been included, and they appreciate that. And it's a good reflection on the board to ask for that type of input.
Well said, and I completely agree. And I was going to say something else. Maybe it will come back to me. Maybe it will come back to me, but it's probably what you were going to say, so well said. Okay. And so then, from that information, I would come back to your board meeting and say, we have done the surveys, and we've done the focus groups, and we have coded and analyzed them for themes. And we look for things that occurred across all of the groups, but then it's interesting when there are things, this was an issue or a need or a want or a really impactful point that teachers said, or that parents said, or that students said, or that the board said. So you get a very comprehensive report out from the, I know what it was I was going to say on the other one, when Al was talking about the information that we get. Not only does this information inform the announcement of vacancy, so you are clearly conveying to prospective candidates, here is the profile of the kind of person we are looking for. But in addition, that information often really informs the interview questions. Often boards have said, oh wow, I can see 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 interview questions that need to come from the information we got from the focus groups or from the online survey. So from that information, we develop what is called, we call it an announcement of vacancy. It's a brochure. They used to be years ago mailed out in paper form. We will give you some paper ones, but nowadays, of course, they are electronic. The last page on the last back paper on the right side of your folder is what the announcement of vacancy looked like that we did for you in 2013, I believe, when Dr. Walters was hired. So what you will see is this announcement of vacancy accomplishes a couple of things, and it should be the last paper on the right side. And if someone does not have one, let me know. I can pass mine to you. It gives a thumbnail sketch of your district, a little bit of information about programs, a summary of your district, a summary of your board, who are the members, how long have they served, a summary of your financial information, a summary of your community, and as well as one column that says, what's the ideal candidate? And we're actually working to make that a little more specific so that it really would speak to, I could read through that, and what we would do is, and you would hold me accountable for this, that when it was finalized, a person would read through that and be able to say, I absolutely understand the kind of person, the strengths and skills and experiences that Kankakee is looking for, and therefore I know if I'm a good fit or I know if I'm not. It also gives information about applying, the timeline, the important dates. So we develop an announcement of vacancy, and that is disseminated. And not only do we disseminate it on the usual places, our website and the Illinois IASA Job Bank, which, as Al said, those are the two places folks in Illinois and outside Illinois automatically look to when they're looking to come to Illinois to be a superintendent. But that exclusive group that we have of over 7,000 email folks, some of them are business managers, assistant superintendents, superintendents from other states, what have you. This goes out to all of them as well. So it comes right into their inbox, even if it's not been on their radar to go check the IASA website.
And it's also linked to those other 40 states groups
Exactly.
like us that do the superintendent search.
Goes out to the NAS.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. So then there's an application period. So we've gotten input from everybody. What are you looking for? We've put this together. We've disseminated it. Then applications come in. As they're coming in, we verify their qualifications. We verify their licensure. We want to make sure they currently have Illinois licensure. If they're in Illinois, if they're out of Illinois and they say, oh, I'm working on it, I'm getting it, or I'm in Illinois and I'm going to have it done by next May, we want someone that has their licensure, because we all know something can happen and has happened often, where someone has a car accident. This happened to one of our teammates. He and his wife were in a car accident. He was going to be through with a program. He wasn't through with the program. So we vet and verify all of that. Then, application window closes. We analyze those applications really, really carefully for a number of things. Did they complete everything? Did they upload everything? Did they do everything right? In other words, could they follow a lot of directions well and thoroughly? How did they answer the essay questions? Both what was the content of how they answered the mini essay questions, but also their spelling and punctuation. Can they write well, and what did they say? And do they have the experience and the qualifications and the expertise that Kankakee is looking for? We have districts who say, we really need someone with construction building experience. We have 5 old buildings. We've got a referendum. We need a big push for the next 2 to 5 years is going to be building. We need someone who has some knowledge of construction. I had a district recently that said we have 5 unions and all 5 contracts will be coming due in the superintendent's first year. We need someone with negotiation, someone who's been at the table, understands bargaining, has negotiated bargaining. Whatever it might be, there's going to be particular things that you identify, and we'll be looking at that person's experience. Do they have what Kankakee is looking for? Then, let's say there are 60, I'm just pulling a number out of the air. Let's say there are 60 applicants. A group of us, a team of us, individually analyzes carefully, word by word, all of the applications. And we look at the other things, their transcripts and their licensure and their letters of recommendation and their resume, et cetera, as well as the application. And we narrow it down. Like, I would come up with my list of 10 to 15 that I think would be the best fit for Kankakee. Al would do the same thing separately in his home. Another colleague would do the same thing in his home. We put our heads together and say, the 3 of us, what was your list? What was your list? Oh, I didn't have him. What did you see in him? So obviously 3 heads are better than 1. And so from that, we come up with a list of 10 to 12, and we do a screening interview with those 10 to 12. We get eyes on them. We question them to see beyond what their application looked like. We hear from them. Are they able to talk about the experiences? We think that they have a lot of financial expertise, and this district is looking for someone who can really help dig them out of a financial hole, or, and I know following this district, a couple of things, retaining teachers, teacher retention, principal retention has been on your radar. Achievement, raising achievement has been on your radar, maybe DEI initiatives. So we would interview them to make sure that they can talk the talk as well as, walk the walk as well as talk the talk. We would help narrow that slate. So we then would talk to references, we'd do limited background inquiries. From all of that work, we would bring what we call a slate of candidates to you. You would tell us, ultimately, if you felt different than what we typically bring, but usually the slate that we bring is 6 candidates, in the neighborhood of 6. Might be one more, might be one less. We had a district recently say that they wanted 10. We brought them 10. We've had districts often say, you determine it based on where the natural cutoff is. If the natural cutoff is 4 or 5, that's fine. But it's usually in the neighborhood of 4 to 6. We bring all of that information to you. We schedule the first round interviews for you. Something else that we do is provide you with a wealth of information to prepare you for those interviews. We have a binder. We do a kind of a little in-service, in closed session, hopefully as part of a regularly scheduled board meeting, as I said, so you don't have to schedule a special board meeting for this process. But this, we bring you everything from do's, don'ts, schedules, protocols, tips, look-fors, just a wealth of information, almost everything and more that you could be thinking about because it's been a while since you've hired a superintendent, as well as a bank of over 100 questions to draw from, and they're by category, to help you determine your first round interview questions and your second round interview questions. And then, of course, we'll draw you back to the focus group data and the survey data and help you draw some questions out of that as well.
One parallel comment to the developing the slate of candidates has to do with the possibility of internal candidates. And if you as a board have internal candidates that are interested in the position, you know how you want them to be considered in the process, most likely, and you let us know that, and then we'll work with you in that capacity. If you want them to be thrown in the mix and see how they sort out with everybody else who's applied, that's the way we do it. If you feel that you have certain candidates that you feel are potentially viable, and you want them to be in the mix as far as interviewing, then we would address that with you and make that happen. But you need to let us know if that's a possibility, or if it's just a kind of let it fall where it may as far as potential internal candidates, and see how they sort out.
Thank you, well said. Thanks for pointing that out. One of the optional, the last bullet on this page is an optional service. You'll note that I didn't put it as recommended, but that's probably only because not a lot of boards choose it. But I will say, only a couple of times a year does a board choose this, but when they do, they absolutely love it and rave about it and say they're glad they did it. But it's essentially a practice interview for the board, where you actually have a practice candidate, a mock candidate, and it's one of our team members, and they've researched and prepped as if it's a real interview. And it's a chance for you to see the timing of the questions, what you're looking for in the answers. Is it the right number of questions? Is it the right questions? And just to get a feel for the interview process. That's an optional, it's an additional $1,500 should you wish to do that. And then I already mentioned how we assist you. That first bullet I've already addressed, the interview protocols and the format. We provide a wealth of information in a really nicely organized format for you for that. The last optional and recommended piece is when let's say there are 6 candidates, and let's say you've done first round interviews, and there are 2 candidates that really emerge. You've talked, and we have some information to help you determine how to have that conversation and come to consensus. Let's say there are 2 candidates that emerge, and you're going to move them on to the next round, the second round. We have information for you, so the board is ready. Al talked about the stakeholder piece. A number of districts want to get feedback from stakeholders when they're down to the final 2, but they want to make sure the stakeholders know they're not making the decision. The board's making the decision. And they want it to go well, that illegal questions aren't asked, and there's no gotcha and no loose cannons. And we have a really refined and excellent, if that's something you're interested in, a process. And I won't go into it now because for it to be that refined means there's just a lot of little pieces to it, and it's not something you would be doing. We would be helping you with until probably November or early December, depending when you're doing final round. But it goes wonderfully. Folks volunteer in advance to come. I have done stakeholder interviews or stakeholder group with the finalists in auditoriums as big as this during COVID, where there were 75 people and they were spread out every third. And I've had probably as many as 80 stakeholders, and I've had as few as 12. And it has gone, as well as with my colleagues, great. It gives us great information. We do a little orientation with them before the interviews start, where we in-service them about who's going to ask questions and what are we doing and what brought us to this point. And part of that is to tell them very nicely but clearly that they are not making the decision. And we remind them that it's a little bit like, maybe not a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle, but it's a lot like a 20-piece jigsaw puzzle. And the board has all of the pieces. And I name what those pieces are. And one of the pieces is the stakeholder feedback from the finalists. And so really help them understand that their opinion, their feedback is really important to the board. But to help them to not be upset if the person they like the best wasn't the one picked. And truly, I can tell you this process goes really, really well. So that's an additional piece, should you be interested in it. And then, of course, once you've hired someone, there's a piece that we put in complimentary where our field service folks would come and do a starting right workshop with the board and the new superintendent. You can do those at any time, but there's a fee typically. So you could call up the IASB office and say, hey, we're kind of struggling with something. Could you come in and do a workshop with us? And they would say, absolutely, and there's a little fee with that. But it's included complimentary when you utilize us for the search. So again, I'm not going to read these to you, but I've mentioned a couple of the optional pieces, and you see X's on the two that Al and I would suggest you consider. But you can certainly consider others, or you can say, no, thank you, if you go with us, we don't think we want any of those. Or you could say, actually, we do want the surveys and we do want the stakeholders at the end, but we'd also like the interview practice. So again, up to you. I've already talked about the follow-up training. Before any questions, would just like to leave you with a couple of things. One being, if you can't read that second line, that second area, it talks about our retention rate. So even looking at the last 3 years with COVID and all that came along with that, we have a 92% retention rate, that 57 of the 62 SOUPs for the last 3 years that we facilitated helping districts get are still in their same position. We've already touched on the national presence and our experience. So I think the last thing I want to say is the statement of assurance, which is the third one down, and the guarantee of services. This is what will give the board peace of mind that you won't be left high and dry or stuck or having to settle with someone or starting over from scratch. Here's what those two pieces are. If you hire IASB and you sign a contract with us, we will work with you and stay with you and repeat any steps that might need to be repeated should something unforeseen or unusual happen. And I can give one example that I encountered. We will stay with you for not 1 penny more. So here's an example. The spring that COVID started and schools shut down, it was like Friday, March 13th. I think the governor shut things down. Kids were sent home, and that following Monday, schools were shut down for the rest of the year. We had a search that was in process, and they were actually down to their 2 finalists. And we continued on with the search. We, of course, like others did, we pivoted to boards pivoted to online, and they conducted the final interviews via Zoom. And one candidate, boom, they loved. Strongly, strongly, strongly preferred. The other one, really, now that they had the second interview and a closer look, they were not interested. But what happened was that person suddenly found herself in a situation she never dreamed of, and that's everything that was going on in her district, and with everyone trying to go to online learning. She came to me, she came to the board, and she said, when I started this process, of course, nobody could have predicted what March brought. She said, if they would have offered me the job, I would have gone and accepted it. My district is in disarray right now. I can't, in good conscience, leave my district. I'm really sorry, but I have to step out. And at this point, it's April. So there's an example of something unusual happened. Does the board, do we say, well, we've done all of our parts, and we've brought you good candidates, you just need to settle for your other runner-up? Absolutely not. The board needs to be happy and satisfied. And so what we did was, we helped them get really good and highly qualified interims for the following year. And then we redid the search. We relaunched the search. Again, not for one penny more, because we'll stay with you until you get someone hired that you're happy with. And they got a superintendent who now is in her, I don't know, second or third year, fantastic fit, doing great. The other piece, so that's the guarantee of service. The statement of assurance is, once someone is hired, if they leave your district for any reason in that next year, we will redo the search for no cost. So they didn't work out, you didn't like them and didn't renew their contract, their spouse got a dream job in New Zealand and is leaving, whatever the reason is. And we've certainly been known to go a little bit over that 1-year mark. I know there was one that was let go the November after the first year, so it's almost at 1.5 years, and we'll work with you. And so, again, that's to give you some peace of mind that you won't have to settle, and that we'll be there for no extra money until you're fully satisfied. So that's the end of our presentation, and we would really welcome any questions you might have.
Okay. Mr. Williams, you want to lead off?
Okay. I'm going to jump right to my CBE question.
Okay.
Our high school utilizes company-based education process. Are you familiar with CBE, and is it part 2 of that?
Familiar in broad terms.
That's all you can have.
Yeah. But I would say the fact that you've asked that question, that might tell me that that's something you'd be interested in, a leader that has expertise in that area. So I guarantee that I'm a little bit of an overachiever. By the next time I talk to you, I would be a near expert on the topic, just because that's what I do, is research things. So me personally, I don't have a wealth of information. I know what it is.
Oh, okay. Because we're like 5-6 years in now.
Okay.
So we need someone to have that kind of experience.
Absolutely. So that's the kind of thing that we would incorporate. If that is something that's important, and it sounds like it is, but the fact that it's a question here that's important to the board, that's an example of something that would be incorporated into the ideal candidate.
Okay.
Yep. And that's something that we would incorporate into our screening questions to make sure we were bringing you somebody with that knowledge.
Ms. Brett, do you have a question?
I do. Have you had success in recruiting a superintendent for a district as large as ours?
Yes, and larger. I think that in the RFP, which I could probably pull up here, I know that we included those in our proposal, but I mean, districts of 5, 7, 8, 10,000,
Right.
I know that we have.
Yeah. Champaign we did, Peoria, trying to think, in the suburban area, Addison. So yes, in answer to that question, we've worked with a variety of sizes of districts, but yes, large districts as well.
And again, I know because it's been a few weeks since we submitted the request for proposal. In coming up with that list, we looked at size, location, and district makeup. So, I could go back to that list. If you would want others that would be references to speak with, we would absolutely love to have you speak with them.
And then my next question, I do remember that you said that maybe 50-something out of the 60, or 60 out of the 70 superintendents that you've hired are still,
57 of 62.
something like that.
Yeah.
62 are still in their titles. And are those, do you know offhand, are those first-year contracts or more, or do you know?
Are you asking what the length of the contract is for folks hired?
No, I'm asking, are those the people that you have hired, the 56 superintendents that are currently serving in their title, do you know how long they've been in that title? Is this their first-year contract? Is this their second-year
So
contract?
because it's a 3-year span, some are in their first year, some are in their second year, and some are in their third year.
And some could have had their contract extended or renewed even in that first period of time, rather than waiting till the end of it, too.
Right.
We could find that information. I don't think we have right at hand.
Yeah, I don't think our administrative assistant had that number broken down by what year they were in. That would probably take a little individual, it might take a little while to get it. If that was important to you, the board would just need to let me know that.
Ms. Johnson?
You talked about recruiting from out of state. Do you have a lot of out-of-state superintendents? And then I guess the next question is, do you find a lot of them that really want to come to Illinois?
Good questions. And if you look back at this little bar graph, that shows you from, and I'm sorry, I know that's really small, so I'll tell you what the years are. From 2010 to
Your mic.
2011. Oh, I'm sorry. From 2011 to 2021, the 10-year span is what that is. That's showing the number of in-state applicants, the percentage in blue, and out-of-state in red. So that just gives you a sense of the percent, some years smaller, some years a little bigger. That's the first question. So yes, we do tend to get, not overwhelming, depends on the search, depends on the location. The second question's a really interesting one. Do you find they want to come here? And there have been a number of folks who are from Illinois, had worked here, something took them, maybe a spouse's job, maybe kind of an incredible opportunity, something took them someplace, but they want to get back to family, they want to get back to the Chicago area, what have you. So sometimes, and again, your location is very desirable. So there are some folks who have never worked in Illinois, and so them, of course, we have to particularly carefully and additionally vet who would like to come to Chicago area, this area. But we do find, I seem to find a lot of them that have some kind of family roots connection to Illinois or this area, and it's sort of more like coming back home.
So there's a reason to come.
There's a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Ms. Baronis?
I'm not sure if you touched on this, but do you go back and recruit the superintendents that you've placed in a school district?
Oh, if we place someone, will we go recruit them to come here? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm
you said
sorry.
we recruit them to come here, do we recruit them the same ones to go somewhere else, right? Is that what you're asking?
Right,
Yeah.
yes, do you go, if you were to place someone in our district, would you come back and recruit them?
Oh, for another
Yes,
district,
for
another search?
position.
No.
Nope, we don't do that. We find you the best candidate, and we also know that as your association, we have an obligation for that person's success and your success as a board and as a district. And so that specific type of recruiting, we wouldn't, because we don't think it's fair to you to come cherry pick your superintendent, because we know they're really good, and we're doing a search, let's say, 2 years from now somewhere else, and we think, oh, we got got the right person for that district. No, we don't do that, because
no.
we have an obligation to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Gathing?
I have probably the longest tenure on the board, and I do believe that we used you guys before.
Yes.
When we hired Dr. Walters.
Yes.
So I'm pretty much familiar with how you guys went about in terms of how you, how we had how we ended up with a superintendent.
Okay.
And I am pretty well pleased.
Okay. Thank you,
Great.
sir. Thanks for your service. You've been on a while.
And we're even better now than we were 10 years ago, so.
Aren't we all?
And we do refine things continuously. For example, one of the things, the last time you utilized us when Dr. Walters was hired, when I talked about when we refine that group down to a smaller group, and then we conduct those screening interviews, our team does, that used to be one of the optional for an additional fee. And a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, we said, we need to be doing that. We need to be doing that for all of the searches. So that's one now that, and we didn't increase our price. It's not like, well, let's do it for everybody, but we'll just up the price. We kept our prices exactly the same, but we started including that as the standard, one of the standard features.
That price question too, it's not always a driving factor, but we're former superintendents. We know this is a fiscal decision on your part as well. That's why we feel that, and we're very proud of the fact that we're able to keep our costs and expenses, at a minimum, because, again, it comes back to us serving you as your association.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a full-time administrative assistant that most other firms are not going to be able to have the luxury of that because it's IASB. We have governmental relations that we have access to, legal counsel next door. We have a full-time publication department that can make a change in 2 minutes on the announcement of vacancy if there's an error. I mean, they are 365 virtually full-time. So many, even though the consultants like Al and I work on a consultant basis, so many members of IASB are full-time, and you get the benefit of that in all the departments.
Let me follow up with your background, or checking backgrounds. How deeply do you go? Do we look at social media? Do we screen all of that? Because I have this fear of hiring somebody and 2 weeks later the Facebook post comes up that's going to haunt us for the rest of our lives.
That is an excellent question, and something, let me find where it is. It's on the right side, and you don't have to dig it out now. I'll just show you what it looks like. There's something on the right side that says People Trail at the top. But to answer your question, there is very strict federal law regarding the difference in what we can do to check their background versus what you can do to check their background, because you are the hiring entity and we are not. Therefore, we check, I would say, very thoroughly. We talk to folks who have supervised them. If it is an assistant superintendent, we talk to at least 2 previous bosses, superintendents who evaluated them. We talk, when they sign our application process, one of the things they sign is they acknowledge that we can talk to people besides who's on their reference list. So if it's an assistant superintendent and they don't list their superintendent as a reference, that's a little bit of a red flag to me. I want to talk to that superintendent, and I do. If it's a superintendent and they don't list a board member, or they maybe list one who left the board a few years ago, could be a legitimate reason. But so just know that we do a lot of checking, and we call it background inquiries. We do not do the official where you can say, we want to use an organization. If you try to do it yourself, or we try to do it ourselves through, say, Googling, you're opening yourself up for a significant lawsuit, as would we. And again, it's tied to federal law. However, so to do it, which you want to do it, you need to do it through an organization, that's what they do, and to protect yourselves from any liability. This one, we would get nothing from it by you using it. We only suggested, this is one you could use because IASB uses this to hire its members. So I was checked through People Trail before they hired me in 2019. So I know that this is one that IASB likes and uses. There are others. So the answer is we check references, and we speak to as many people, not just someone under them who they supervise. It's a superintendent, and they've listed a principal and an assistant superintendent and a parent as their references. That's fine, that's nice, but I really want to talk to the folks who evaluate and are the boss of that superintendent. So we check carefully and thoroughly the references we talk to. We will not do, and we cannot do this, but you can, and we recommend that you do.
And we've had extensive discussions with our attorneys as far as what we can and can't do,
Right.
and they've provided us direction because they want us to be protected, and they want you as a board to be protected as well. And that's why we've been very much in
And-
communication with them about what we can and can't do in terms
Yeah.
of Googling and social media aspect.
And I would
of
tell
that.
you that we, sort of itch to do it, but we have to follow federal law. But you will want to do this, and it's very inexpensive.
Right.
So there would be nothing that would, really preclude or cause you to not run them through a very thorough background search.
Okay.
We do a pretty good job of finding skeletons because of the number of rocks we turn over. And we come and flat out ask them in our screening interview, is there, because it will come out. It will come out. Doesn't matter if you're from another state. Is there something, anything in your past that would need explaining, that could cause embarrassment to the district or to us as IASB, or that would need maybe just some context? It could look bad on paper, but there's a whole other story to it. And people are very forthcoming. We added that question to our screening interview a couple of years ago, and people will tell you things that may or may not show up in a background search. Thank you, great question. What else?
Mr. Williams, do you have any more questions? Okay. Ms. Farrett?
No, I'm sorry, no.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
Of course I do. Question about you conduct the surveys with the board, staff, and/or community. If we would not, what happens to those surveys? Because then you followed up by an option to conduct the in-district staff and community. Is it the same type? Are you going into more detail?
We're going into more detail. The online survey, and first of all, we own it. We are the possessors of it. So we create it. We send you the link, whoever the contact is at the district, and we send it in other languages if you need that. And then it has the link in it that says, here's what it is. It's very short. Thank you for taking it. It will end, the window to fill it out ends at midnight on such and such a date. The board's really interested in hearing blah, blah, blah. And so that gives us good, we get those data and we analyze and code those data. So there are the forced choice ones. Do you think this person should have previous superintendent experience? Do you think they should have previous principal experience? Do you think they should reside in the district? There are things like that. Here's a list of things. What are the 5 most important characteristics? So there's some forced choice, and then there's an open-ended section that says, what else are you thinking about? What's important in hiring the superintendent? And all of those are the things that we code. The in-person focus groups, yes, it's different questions, it's different information, and it just really fleshes out. So we get very good information. Districts that don't have time or can't afford, or for whatever reason can't do the focus groups, we still can get to the bottom of what they need to put in the announcement of vacancy. But if you can do the focus groups, it gives more and richer and deeper information.
So we would get information from, if we did the option, but we would also get the information from the first, we would get all the information.
You would get all, you
Right.
would actually get it as 2 separate reports, and all of it would be coded for themes and frequency.
Okay, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
2 separate reports, yes,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
Ms. Baronis, do you have any other questions?
Just a quick question. You stated that you guys do the first round of interviews. Are those questions based off what we have suggested that we're looking for in a superintendent, or are those questions that we can give to you and you would ask through that first set?
For the screening?
You're talking about our screening?
Yes.
So we have a set of standard screening questions, and then we have a section that says district-specific questions. So, for example, the competency-based education, or equity work, or achievement gap work, or whatever it might be that we know is important here, we would ask that in our screening interview.
And then, of course, in your initial interviews as a board with those candidates, then you could
You would want to ask.
expand on those, ask those same questions, however you want to
Okay.
proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gathering, anything else? Just a couple of follow-up.
Yes.
As we develop what our ideal candidate is from the board input, there may be suggestions that you're going to think that's going to really limit applicants. I'll throw it out, it may not be one that's even relevant, but residency,
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
Will you be able to provide suggestions back to us to say, if you really want that, that's okay, but it's going to limit your pool?
Yes, that's exactly what we do. We always say, as I said at the beginning, this is your search. You have to be comfortable every step of the way. But because this is all we do, we have a lot of experience, we have recommendations. And so just to use your example, to continue that example, the residency, which actually tends to be more important to boards and communities the further, like below I-80. So smaller rural districts, well, the district may be large square miles, but it's not as populated. And it's generally speaking, and generalizations don't always carry across the board, but generally speaking, we find some of the more rural districts, it's very important to the constituents that the person be a taxpayer in their district. And so we have that conversation, and we will say to them, that is your decision. You can absolutely say residency is required. Here are the downsides. It will limit the pool. There will be folks who will not apply, and there might be some really good ones that will not apply. However, let's talk about this. So sometimes we can provide options. One is residency is required. The date, something like, I don't have the wording in front of me, but we used it with the district recently, the date by which residency needs to occur to be negotiated with the board. For example, I'm the person, let's say, and you'd really like Trish to come to your district, and you really want residency, and I say, I have a junior in high school. I would very much like to come to this district. Or, I own a house, and let's say at the time the housing market is bad. I'm underwater with my house. Can it be I'm going to move when my child graduates high school, or can it be I will move here when I sell my house? So sometimes it's saying this is super important to us, but it gives a good candidate by the fact that it would say the actual date or the specifics of when you move here to be negotiated with the board. That helps, rather than just saying residency is required. And the other thing some districts do is they put residency is strongly preferred.
Right.
So they stop short of saying required, but it really tells that candidate, if here are 2 finalists and one says, I'm ready to move to the district, that would be my plan, my goal, I've already been looking at houses, and the other one says, I live 45 minutes away or 50 minutes away, and I'm just not in a position to move, then the board, that could be one factor they would consider by saying strongly preferred.
We've even had boards and candidates contractually work it out maybe within a certain radius where the residency would be. So it just all depends, but that's a good thing to consider.
Yep.
Yeah, I want you to be straight with us in
Sure.
terms of.
Oh, absolutely.
That's an issue that may cause problems. The other
Absolutely.
question that I would like to close with, because we're about out of time.
Yes.
We are a very diverse community and a very diverse school district.
Yes.
Will you be bringing to us candidates, assuming that they have other qualifications of diverse ethnic and economic backgrounds?
Yes, with your caveat, assuming
Right.
that they have the skills. What we say is, we attract diverse candidates. We have placed a number of diverse candidates in Illinois over this past year. I can think of a number that Al and I have worked on. We would tend to stop short of saying we would guarantee that half of them would be an individual of color, because we have a standard that the slate we bring to you, we will walk into the room and say, we believe your next superintendent is in this binder, and he or she, each of them has met the ideal candidate. They have the strengths, skills, qualities, and qualifications you're looking for. But we draw a very diverse pool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Boland, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
A follow-up on the CBE. We know that there might be some schools that are using it, but they don't use it per se. It's not called CBE. Will that be a problem, trying to find people to come into our district, because we know that the pool is not real big?
So making sure I understood that, maybe there's somebody that really has a lot of expertise, but they don't call it that in their district. Would we be able to tease that out and find that out about that person?
I think that would spread it out a little bit more, I mean, as opposed to limit a lot of people.
Right. And so, yes, again, anything that bubbles to the top as critically important to this board is critically important to us as we are screening. And at times, we will say with the candidate we bring, this person has not specifically led CBE, and we know that was one of your characteristics and one of your ideal candidate traits. However, we know this and this and this about this candidate, and that kind of thing. And this person has already enrolled in CBE coursework, or this person is now networking at a district 2 towns away because they are very effectively and with integrity doing CBE. So sometimes we will do our best, just as you will, to make sure that not one thing is a deal breaker unless that one thing should be a deal breaker.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate your time
We
coming
appreciate
here.
the
Appreciate
opportunity.
your opportunity.
Appreciate that. I know the proposal takes time and the presentation takes time. and
Our
your-
pleasure. It's important work. I appreciate your time in advance, the extra time
Thank you
it's
so
going to
much.
take. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of copies of the
Sure.
contract. Should you wish to go with us, we would be honored. We would do a great job for you. And you just would need to sign. And again, there's one page that talks about the extra services. You can do them if you know what they are. You can leave it blank if you don't. And then you just get that to us.
All right.
We could
Well,
talk
thank
later.
you so much.
Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
10 years.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you.
I gotta have a bathroom.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions.
I got a potty.
There you go. That's why you're here then.
I know them well. Do you really? I know them
Don't
well.
do that. Put that in front of my name.
Hey,
Don't put that in front of my name.
Hey, Ms. Harrison,
I'm sorry. I will.
children of color.
I'm sorry.
95%
I'm sorry. I'm
through
turning.
fund. So much.
Thank you, too.
Hey, can you hear me?
Like Colorado or someplace.
Good, how are you? I'm gonna make you the host
Chris.
So you can share your PowerPoint on your end, okay?
Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes. Everybody's going to.
Do you have PowerPoint?
Oh, would you please give Gene my
I
love?
will do that.
If you don't,
About a month ago. So
two of my
Yeah.
favorite people.
Well, that, ours too. He also married my children. So it's that's the, and their son is my namesake.
Oh,
There's
my
a lot of
God.
connections.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
You
hang
talk
on, let
about
me send it
wonderful
to
quality
you.
people, their legacy
Truly.
in Quincy.
She's on her way in now.
Wow, that's really nice to know. It's neat when you find
Yeah.
those connections.
Yeah, it
Thanks
is.
so much,
It
a
is.
pleasure to
Yeah,
meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, and thanks again for the interest in our district.
Our pleasure, our pleasure.
Thanks for your help.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel, so
No
much for
problem.
all the great and quick correspondence.
No problem, thank you. Trying to go
So I
back
want to
and
make
forth.
sure I didn't leave anything, but I think we've got everything.
You do, yeah, okay. Okay. Just so we can see you, because if we can't have both of you and the PowerPoint up. So, and we didn't think about that before. so. I'm gonna put you on mute real quick because I have to join via the phone, hang on. Correct. Do you know how to share screen? There should be, once I do make you the host, at the bottom, there should be a share screen button. You just hit that share screen button. Here, let me make you the host right now. And you can see it. You should be the host now, and then you should have the share screen button at the bottom. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There you go. You got it. Yep, you're up. We can see you. You're to the side, but we can see your thing too. Yeah, I told her, I thought I told, oh, I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still calling in.
She's sitting out here.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID, followed by enter your participant ID, followed by pound. Otherwise, just press you are in the meeting. There are
Hey Keith, how are you? What are you trying to do? Oh, do we have a by phone?
Yeah, one's here and then one is via Zoom. Yeah. Yeah. Let me go get, hang on. She's getting something real quick. Let me go get the hot lady.
What's up, Keith?
I'm on vacation today.
No, no, you're not. You're here.
So we're okay
you enjoy listening to this? Just asking. The politically correct way.
Getting herself.
Jess, did you read your letter?
Huh?
You'll be right here.
Oh, yeah, I saw it on Facebook.
You got it?
I'm sorry. Oh,
Ask her if she can see.
Can you see? No, because it just says KSD 111 board. You gotta,
I don't see, everything is black except I see myself in the corner.
I can see you, Sheila.
Okay.
there we go.
Oh,
Now she-
now I can,
Yep.
yeah, now I can see. Now I can see. Okay, so just say when and I'll get this talking over here.
We're waiting on, I think, Mr. Bolin and 2 more board members to come back, and then you guys can get started, okay?
Sounds good.
he's horrible. Huh? It was posted. Rachel, this meeting was posted, correct?
Yeah.
For the public?
I'm going to go ahead and start handing out.
I'll put my lunch away.
Oh, that's okay, go right ahead. I'm Ann Nolan, by the way.
From there to
Deb
there.
Johnston.
Nice to meet you.
Speakers
I'm Ann.
far more important than I.
Nice to meet you, Susan.
I think it actually gets
Yes,
Mr.
yeah.
Gathing too.
Nice to meet you.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Materials to the rest of you when everybody gets back.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't look. It was on Facebook and everything. Special
That's how I
board
was,
meeting.
because I forgot my password, that's how I was on the
Yep.
agenda.
Yep.
Oh, man.
No, we, going for the last one.
My knee's cracking. I'm going to.
Yep.
I just moved it because I was irritated.
Oh, good, I'm not on the screen.
No, you're not.
I can sit here and veg out.
They said you want to be?
No,
They can move the camera and put you on. Deb.
I'm sure, but we're focused on you, that's all that counts.
No, it's Dr. Nolan here is where it's focused.
Flying solo today?
She's right here.
Oh, okay.
We're going to make her bigger, maybe, right?
Yeah, she's in Arizona right now,
Oh,
so,
Yeah.
but we'll make it work.
my old stomping grounds.
Is that where you're from?
No, I used to live there. From here.
She is too. She doesn't show.
What part of Arizona?
I think she's in Phoenix right now.
It was 80 degrees here. How hot was it in Arizona today? I actually turned my air conditioner on. First time.
You turned it on today?
The central air, yeah. I've been having my upstairs air on all the time
Pack it, didn't
because it's so hot up there. But I finally broke down for the.
I? Okay. And what's your name?
Darrell.
Nice to meet you, Darrell. I'm Ann.
Shake my hand like
Yeah, I figured, we'll do this. We'll figure it out, right?
cheese popcorn on my hand.
Chris, is that your phone that doesn't work?
It's not me.
No, the place called Cranky Mike's.
I don't know whose it is.
Yeah, it's in.
His doesn't work.
It's Tracy's.
Mine works all the time except for you. I got it blocked.
It's right up there with you.
I'm beginning to believe it.
It's right up there with yours.
It's time to stop talking.
And I saw you a bit ago.
Yes.
Nice to meet you,
Nice to meet
Ann.
you. Oh, is it up here? Oh, here it is.
Is that yours, Tracy?
It is.
Okay, all right. I was coming around to collect it. Okay. So let us resume. We have with us Dr. Ann Nolan, who's Director of BWP Consultants. And on the Zoom, I think we have Dr. Harrison Williams, who's also Director of BWP Consultants, right?
Okay.
All right, we can hear you. That's what I was wanting to test. It was going to be a real short session if we couldn't hear you.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
I'll turn it over to you, the two of you.
And I'm going to let Sheila, she's going to be our starter today. So thank you, board, for inviting us, and we'll let Sheila get us started. In your folders, we have our PowerPoint's on the screen, but we also gave you a paper copy of it in your folders.
Okay.
And as I said, Sheila will get us started. Dr. Harrison Williams.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, I am Sheila Harrison Williams of BWP and Associates, and we are very, very excited and very happy for this opportunity to present to you this evening and hopefully get an opportunity to work with you as you look for and find your next superintendent for Kankakee School District 111. A bit about me. I've been with BWP for, since 2012, so a little over 10 years, conducting and assisting with over 25 searches. I was a public school educator for 35 years now, and 18 of those years were as superintendent of schools in the South suburban area of Chicago. And during that time, I served on numerous executive boards. I was treasurer of the National Alliance of Black School Educators Board, as well as the president of the Suburban Superintendents Association, Superintendents Commission for the Study of Demographics and Diversity. And in 2018, I was elected and served as president of the Illinois Association of School Administrators Board, serving over 860 school districts across the state of Illinois. And I was the first African-American to serve as president of this organization in its 73-year history at that time. I am also co-founder of the HWC Executive Leadership Aspiring Superintendent Summer Institute, which is designed to provide in-depth preparation for those that aspire to become superintendents. And since its inception in 2011, over 70 of our graduates have gone on to become superintendents across this country. And I currently serve as mentor or coach to a number of them right now. I am currently serving as the executive director of the Arizona School Boards Association, where we serve over 223 school districts and over 1 million students. And that is until June 30th of this year. To God be the glory. Therefore, I bring a national connection to the search process. And now joining me, as you've all met and know, my partner, Dr. Ann Nolan.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm Dr. Ann Nolan, as Sheila just said. And like Sheila, I'm a retired superintendent from the south suburbs. I began my career downstate in Decatur, Illinois, and I was there for about 24 years and then relocated to the suburbs and then worked my way up to superintendent there. Sheila and I were actually in the same region, so we knew each other and we've worked together for years and years, both as superintendents and then as consultants with BWP and Associates. I've been a consultant with BWP for about 17 years, and during that time, I have the dubious honor of having conducted over 100 searches, either superintendent, principal, or other leadership position searches, but I've done over 100 for the firm. I've done some as small as 450 kids, because in Illinois we have those small districts that we work with. And I've done some, and I also was part of the team that did Chicago, so that was the third largest school district in the country. Right now I'm finishing up Savannah, Georgia, and I think they've done an excellent job with their search there, and they're just in the final, they're down to their final 3, so hopefully we'll have a candidate, they'll have a superintendent by the end of the week. I guess like Sheila, I've been involved in a number of organizations, and I worked closely with her when she did the Aspiring Superintendent workshops, and we get wonderful, wonderful candidates from the work that she has done there. I've been president of some organizations, including the Illinois ASCD. The reason I do this work, I think education has been my life, and I feel like all kids in all kinds of school districts are deserving of good leadership. And that's what Sheila and I try to do. No matter what the district needs, we try to find the fit and the match for that district. So that's kind of why we do the work. It's a way for us to continue to be in education, continue to give back, and continue to try to do good things for kids. And Sheila's going to take us from there.
All right. Okay. So these are some questions that we will be answering for you. I'm sure these are anticipatory sets that we put together. We figured that this is what you're really wanting to know. Who is BWP and Associates? And who are the consultants that we will work with us during this search? And you just met us. It will be Ann and I. We both will devote 100% of our time on finding good candidates for you to select your superintendent from. And then 3, what is the process that we suggest that you use? And then how does BWP recruit a talented candidate pool? How long will the search process take? What will this cost? What assurances can you give us that we will be successful? And why should we select BWP and Associates? We are assuming that these are questions that are burning, and these are the questions that we're going to try our best to answer for you during this presentation this evening. And I'm going to go in here and talk a little bit about who is BWP. Well, we are a search firm formed back in 2006 through a merger of 3 national firms, the Bickert Group, T&R, Carroll, Webb, and Associates, which was the oldest superintendent search firm in the United States, which was formed back in 1977. We've conducted over 800 successful superintendent searches. We focus on personalized and local service with a national presence to support our work for school boards to hire talented leaders. The firm is made up of 10 directors and maybe 50 now associates. Ann and I are 2 of the partners. Our partners and associates are superintendents, active and retired, university faculty, and former Board of Education members, as we are a very diverse firm and very proud of that fact. Over 99% of our candidates we placed since 2006 completed a first step or a minimum of a 3-year successful 3 years. 95% of the candidates we've placed since 2006 were offered successor contracts. And not a single candidate placed since founding of this company was found to be negligent or criminal in the performance of his or her duties. We have a strong reputation among our clients and our candidates as being professional and very conscientious in the search process, meaning we are there for you every step of the way. We will work with you, hold your hand throughout the process. You will have direct contact with us during and after the search process. And so that's a little bit about who we are as BWP. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Ann, and she will guide you through the 5 phases of the search process.
Thank you, Sheila. We look at having a 5-phase search process, and I'm going to walk you through those and not read it to you, but do a little bit of explaining as I go through. The first phase is customizing the search. We kind of believe every district's a little different, and so while there are some things that are similar and we process that we follow in all districts, we also give each district the opportunity to tailor their own search to their liking to meet their needs.
And could you get a little closer?
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cough, too. I hope I don't do that. But so that's, we also, during the planning or the customizing search, we look at a timeline. We look at developing a marketing plan with you. That's your advertising plan. How do you want the position advertised? Where do you want it to go? How we envision doing that, and what would the cost be of that? So we'll work with that. And then we'll develop a communication plan. And like Sheila said, we really are 24/7 people. We're available when you call us. But we'll also do some formal communicating, and what I usually like to do, or Sheila in this case will probably be the one doing it, is that we'll give you a weekly update through an email to the board president or whoever your contact person is. And that we'll keep in touch with you weekly, as well as being available 24/7, and you'll have the timeline which you can follow too, that you'll know exactly what we're doing each phase of the search. We'll also talk to you about compensation and look at districts similar to yours and look at what their compensation plans are, so that you've got some ideas about where you would come in. We usually ask districts to advertise positions as regionally competitive, and then we work with you on defining that. Phase 2, and this is probably the thing I think the boards are usually most interested in, is developing a leadership profile. Because we work with, leadership profile is how we get to your community and work with you to see what the exact qualities and characteristics are of the person you're looking for. So with the, to develop a leadership profile, we will meet with each board member individually. We usually do this by a phone call because it's more convenient for you, and we'll talk with you for a half hour or so about the things that you think are really going well in the district, about the things that you feel are challenging in the district, and then we'll move into characteristics that you would be looking for in the new superintendent. We then move out into the community and ask those same questions. We will conduct focus groups in the school and the community with community leaders, with the staff, and in the case of a K-12 district, we also include the students. And I think this is really important to the board because you've got people in the district that you want us to talk to. And that changes from district to district. There are some common ones, of course, teachers, principals, central office staff, those are common to all districts. But you've got your own community here in Kankakee, and you know who's involved in the community and who for us to reach out to. So those are some things we'll ask you during the planning portion of the search. We'll also conduct an open survey for the district, and this will be posted on your website. We have a third party do this so that it's anonymous. And this way you can say to your community that everybody had a chance to participate. Either you were in a focus group, you had an individual interview like the board members, you came to an open meeting, or you had the opportunity to take part in a survey. So you can say with assurances that if people want to participate and inform you about what they're looking for in the next superintendent, it's available to them. Sheila, if I forget anything, please just chime in. Then what we do with all this data is we analyze, so we put together the survey and all the information we've learned from your focus groups. We begin to analyze it and triangulate the information. We do this kind of by tallying. We take some quantitative things and if we take some qualitative information and quantify it and come up with a list of 10 or 12 things that everyone in your community is saying. And that becomes then our guidelines and your guidelines as you move on into the leadership, into the superintendent search. Once we know exactly what you're looking for, we can really hit hard on our recruitment process. Boards sometimes ask us how many of the candidates we present to you are recruited, and it's been my practice that it's usually about 60%. So we do a heavy job of recruiting. At the same time, we get a lot of applicants that come into the application process that we might not know. So we look at those very hard too. So we do a combination of recruiting known people, asking our other partners throughout the state to nominate people, and then also looking at applicants that come to us that we think meet your profile and that need further examination. Once we have all of the applications, we then begin to review them all. Sheila and I will go through them individually, then we'll go through them together and rate them by 1, 2, 3, 1 meaning the one that meets your needs the most. Then we will conduct screening interviews with 10 or 12 of the candidates, maybe 14 of the candidates that we feel best meet your needs, and do research and background checking on those candidates. And then, if you want to move on to phase 4, going quickly here, it's time to present them back to you. So we come back with, after doing all of the background work and all the work that we have done to lead up to this point, we come forward to the board with 5 to 7 candidates that we think best meet your needs and meet the leadership profile. Everything until this point, we can do an open session or in the public. Once we get the 5 to 7 candidates, it's really the first time we need to be in closed session or executive session with you, because now we're talking about candidates and their resumes and their careers, and that becomes personnel. We'll excuse me, we will have researched each of these candidates, and we will help you develop an interview schedule for interviewing the candidates. At that point, we also conduct a board training workshop where we talk about helping you develop your questions. We talk about building consensus. We get you to the point that you're ready to take over from us at that time. Then it's kind of your job, and you conduct round one with the candidates on the 5 to 7, and then conduct round 2 with 2 to 3 more, and then we talk to you about if there's something you would like to do with your final candidates of your 2 to 3. Do you want to get some more stakeholder involvement at that point, or would you prefer just to do your elected duty and choose the superintendent yourself? So that's it. Now we're talking about that's what we do in the 12 to 15 weeks that we would be working with you. So we've gone through it very quickly, and I know that you have a lot of questions for us, but that's the process. It's not a difficult process. It's one that we've used over and over again. It works, and I think that our success record speaks to how it works. Phase 5, then, once you have chosen your superintendent, the next, some of the responsibilities are now on you, but we help with them too. The contract preparation, preparing to announce to the public who your superintendent will be, transition planning for how that person is going to transition into the district, relationship building, and ongoing coaching. And we'll talk about this in a minute as well. But we offer ongoing coaching for your new superintendent. So this isn't the end of the process for us. We stay involved with the candidates we have placed for at least a year, if not more. And that includes checking in with the board president too, to make sure things are going well and if there's anything else that we could do to help you at that point. As an example, I did a search last year in Blytheville, Arkansas, and on my list tomorrow is to call that superintendent for her last check-in. So, we put our money where our mouth is in that regard, and we feel like your success is our success at that point. If your superintendent's successful, then we have done a successful search, and it doesn't end when you vote on the person. It's ongoing into the first year and beyond of the search. We've put together a timeline for you. This is just a draft of a timeline, a sample, thinking that we could get started midsummer with getting some of the groundwork, like the planning session done, and then getting really active with your community and your staff in the beginning of the school year, and then finish up end of November, 1st of December. And again, this is just a draft. We would need to really sit down and go through it with you. This gives you an idea of how long we think the search would take. Sheila?
Any questions on that
so far
before we move on? Okay. All right. The next thing here, we have the BWP fees and expenses. Our consulting fee is $19,500, and we have also, there are other expenses that could occur, like the online surveys you heard Ann talk about earlier. We truly recommend doing that online survey to make sure that we have given everyone in the community an opportunity to have some input into the process. And then there's office administrative expenses. Consultant travel definitely will not reach that high of a number, but we build it in just in case. But we're pretty local. We're both coming from south suburban areas, so it wouldn't be that much to travel back and forth to Kankakee at all. Internet and social media checks is $500. That's, again, these are things that you would decide if you would like to do. And then advertising. You will decide if you would like to do a national search, and if that's the case, then, we would be advertising through AASA or the National Alliance of Black School Educators or the Alliance of Latino and Educators. And so there are options there. These are only options, and you will let us know if this is something that you would do. We will work to get this done, and those organizations bill the district directly for those services. We can also add not to exceed amount clause in the letter. of understanding that, that will be presented. So that would be, again, your decision. And assurance, so you have guarantees, and we guarantee you that we will be on call throughout the entire process and the year following. As you just heard Ann say, she's following up a year later with the sitting superintendent that she placed last year in Arkansas. We will provide regular updates to the board president or anyone else that you identify as necessary, and we will mentor, coach, you heard her say that a couple of times, new superintendents and Board of Education at no additional cost during that implementation year. And this also, I believe, is a BWP exclusive. We will repeat the search for expenses only if the selected candidate does not complete 2 years of service with you. We will not recruit nor place a superintendent that we placed in another search during the term of their initial contract. And now, why BWP? We have an outstanding record of success. 99% of our candidates placed have completed the minimum of 3 successful years for their first-year contract. We have a deep knowledge of the Illinois Administrative Network and a thorough understanding of the Illinois educational system. We have extensive recruiting resources to provide to the best candidates. We have a very long reach, meaning that we have associates and colleagues across this country that we reach out to, and we're able to do our homework on each candidate before we present them to you. We have a very comprehensive professional network of colleagues, and they are always willing to help. They're talented and they're committed as consultants for BWP. And as I said earlier, we have a strong reputation among our clients and the candidates of being professional and very conscientious in the search process, meaning we are there with you every step of the way. And I know you heard Ann say that, I said it earlier, but we mean it. We are here with you and for you. You will have direct contact with us. We will give you our cell phone numbers. You can call either of us with any question that you may have throughout this process. And therefore, this process that we're presenting to you tonight will be customized to the needs of the Kankakee School District, if you so desire, if you so select us, and we're hoping that you do. And that is it for us, and that is our quick presentation, and now we will be open to questions or clarity, anything that you may want to ask of us. If you want us to clarify anything that was shared with you this evening, we're willing to do that, and if you have additional questions, we are open.
Okay, so I think we do have questions.
All right.
Mr. Williams, you want to start again? You've been leading off all night, so why not?
We're going back to CBE. Our high school is currently utilizing competency-based education process. Are you familiar with CBE? And do you have a pool of candidates that you can draw from that have experience in it?
I wasn't clear on that first part of the question.
I'll say it again.
But I know you asked about a pool of candidates. No, we do not. We do not have a pool of candidates.
Okay.
We start of course, we know a lot of people, and we've worked with a lot of people, but we start every search from scratch, thinking that we want to get to know you and what you're looking for before we begin to look for people that meet your profile.
Okay, let me say that again.
Sorry.
We're doing competency-based, CBE, competency-based education here at the high school, in the school district. Are you guys familiar with CBE?
Are you saying CTE?
CBE, competency-based education.
I'm sorry. It is not clear for me. I couldn't understand. Ann, could you understand what he's saying?
Yeah, he's talking about competency-based education, and do we have familiarity with that?
Oh, Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
You just didn't want to hear it.
Competency-based education. Yes, I'm very familiar, I'm sure Ann is too, familiar with competency-based education. Yes, I was a superintendent just 4 years ago, so it's not been that long since I've been out of the school system, so.
But those are some, I think part of your question too was, do we know candidates that practice that and can continue to work with you in that? What I would predict is that's going to be something that's going to show up on your leadership profile.
yes.
So that when we talk to candidates about the kind of person you're looking for, that's going to be right. What we do with that leadership profile is we publish that on our website so the people who are applying for the position see what you're looking for. The other thing we do with that is when we're screening our candidates, we base our questions on the leadership profile so that our questions, we don't have a set group of questions that we use. Obviously, there's some things we ask all candidates, but the majority of our screening interview will be based on exactly what we've heard from you. And if that's one of the things the district is looking for, that will become one of our questions, one of the things that we look for. And it should also then, that profile that we've talked about, we're going to give you that back to you in a rubric that you can use when you talk to your candidates to rate your candidates. So again, if that shows up, you'll have the ability to ask questions yourself when you're talking to the candidates and then rate them on a rubric that tells you how competent you think they are in that situation. And not just the competency-based education, but anything else that comes out on the profile, you'll be able to rate your candidates on that based on a rubric. And again, that's why it becomes your search and customized for you, because not every district might not have that on their list, but if it's important to you, it'll be there.
Ms. Verrett?
Absolutely.
I thought she was going to say something, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
So I'm going to go back to my initial diversity question, and how do you ensure that you are choosing candidates from a diverse background? Are you affiliated with some of the national superintendents associations, and how do you ensure that?
Yes, yes, we are very much so on a national level. I'm very active, and I still attend the National Alliance of Black School Educators Conference. We work very closely with them. I attend the National Association of School Administrators Conference every year. I go to the California Alliance of Black School Educators Conference. We have a long reach and with people around the country, and so we are a diverse firm, and we know that you are a diverse school district. So therefore, we're going to make sure that we're going to bring you a diverse pool of candidates. That's what we're hoping to be able to do for you. And how do we ensure that that's what we're doing? We're going to find people that's going to match your profile, and we're going to find people that you're looking for and give you about hopefully 5 to 7 to choose from.
And that comes.
We're going to look for the very best.
And we do a lot of recruiting, and I think that's important for you in getting a diverse pool of candidates is where do we recruit, and how do we reach out, and who do we know, and who do we talk to? And as Sheila said, she's very well associated with the National Alliance of Black School Educators. We also work with the Latino School Administrators Association. And I'm sure, Sheila, you could say something similar to this, but in the last 5 years, my body of work, I've done around 30 searches, and over 60% of them the boards have chosen women or minorities to be the new superintendent. And we say to people, you choose the best candidate. We'll bring you 6 or 7 or 5 to 6 or 7 people that we think meet your profile, but you choose the best candidate. So I think that speaks to our ability to recruit a good group of candidates for you, a good diverse group of candidates for you, because we present a variety of candidates and we stand behind them, and we have seen a lot of success for our women and minority candidates.
Ms. Johnson?
You said you were a national organization?
Yes.
So geographically, we're talking west coast to east coast?
So we've done
and
searches.
north
really-
to south?
Yeah, we do searches all over the country. We're more active in certain areas, like we're very active in the Midwest because a number of us, like Sheila and myself, have backgrounds in the Midwest. We're also very active on the southeast coast. We have some very active members there. But we do searches, like I was involved last year in Arkansas. We do a lot of work in Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. But we have worked in California and Oregon and Washington, and just any place that we're able to work with a board that we think that we're a kind of a boutique firm, we say. We have 10 partners, and we like to be a little bit selective about the groups that we work with because we want to make sure we can make a difference and do good work for them. But we do work all over. We've worked in the Northeast, too. I'm trying to remember now to answer your question, all the different places we've worked. I did one in Connecticut, and I know we've done New York. And anyway, yeah, we work all over. But Sheila and I really we kind of concentrate on the Midwest, actually, the two of us.
Yeah.
You said that the advertising is up to $1,800.
It could be. There's some things that are complimentary, like our website is complimentary to you. The Illinois Association of School Administrators is complimentary to you. There's some other things that will be complimentary to you, and that might be enough because we get really good, some boards don't go any farther than that, and they get really good pools of candidates. We want you to have an opportunity to advertise with the National AASA organization and be able to, there's also a newspaper that most educators read online now called Ed Week. That's another one that we want you to have an opportunity to advertise at, as well as some of the national groups that Sheila mentioned. So we'll give you a list and let you go through some of the pluses and minuses of going with the different national, with advertising nationally, and then let you have some choices in which ones you would like to advertise with. And if you do the whole choice, it's going to come out to about $1,800. You could do as little as $300 to $400 and get some pretty good coverage.
So you said we can advertise through your organization, so that's complimentary.
No, the advertising will be billed to you, although we will do it for you. So we will do the advertising for you, but it's not.
I thought you said that your.
I thought you said with our association, yes, it's free to you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, our
Yes,
PWP
yes.
organization? Oh, yes, that's.
Right.
yeah.
So
I'm
your
sorry.
organization and then the Illinois Association
It's
of
the
Schools.
school, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I misunderstood your question, I apologize. Thank you, Sheila. And there are other free spots as well that we'll make sure that your job is posted on.
Okay.
So
All
you
right,
can really, you really get some pretty good coverage.
Well, it wasn't listed here, so that's why I was confused.
Thank
So
you.
Might have listed it there, I would have,
We're happy to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Baronis?
If for some reason we are not able to find a candidate by our deadline, would your firm assist in finding an interim? Or is that something that we have to do on our own?
If we're lucky enough to be selected by you, we're your firm until you're done, until you've been able to hire a superintendent. So our first goal, of course, is to give you 5 to 7 people you can't live without, and that's what we'll shoot for. But if by some reason that doesn't work out for you, we'll meet with you and try to go through some of the things that didn't work and redo some things for you. But we are your firm until you're satisfied with your final candidate. So we'll do whatever it takes to get you there.
So follow-up question then, if for some reason, I know you stated it's just expenses, if for some reason, if we do hire someone and something happens, and they have to leave within that 2 years, then it's just the expenses that we have to pay, correct?
Basically, our travel expenses and office expenses.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We'll be here.
Mr. Gathing?
No questions.
Tell me more about the background checks. How deep do you go? How is that handled?
There are a couple of different things. We will do all the social media checks, and we will do all the reference checking. By reference checking, we mean not just calling the people that they have on their reference list, although those are important people, but we also are well networked, and we'll find some other people that we can talk to about your candidate as well, to make sure that they are doing what they're saying they're doing. When we interview a candidate, one of our questions is to that candidate, is there anything that we need to know about you that would be embarrassing to you, the board, or us? And we look them in the eye and we ask them that question. So that's another level we go by asking that. We do a very thorough electronic check of all of our candidates. We also offer, but this would be at an expense to the board, that we have a firm who will go deeper than that for you and really go more into background checks and be able to give you that report. It's about $300 and it takes about a week. Some boards use that on their final 2 or 3. Some boards use that on just the final person they select, and some boards choose not to do that. You're going to fingerprint them, of course, when they hire into the district. The other thing is, we're pretty good with somebody from your board talking to somebody from somebody else's board too, when you're down to that one finalist, to give you a little bit of first-time information about the candidate. So we've got several levels of things we do to make sure that the candidates are who they say they are.
Okay. Mr. Williams, you got another question? No?
Don't let me off easy now.
Ms. Brett, do you have another question?
No, I'm good.
No?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Ms. Johnston?
I'm good.
Ms. Bronis? You've
No,
got
I'm
to have.
good, thank you.
What's that?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gathing?
Good.
Let me then, I have another question.
Okay.
In terms of, as we go through our leadership profile, I think is what you called it.
Yes.
If we have things that we think are, we throw out, and what I've used in the other interviews is, we think residency may be important. So I know that can be a barrier to applicants. There may be other issues, other or requests that we have. Will you and your firm give us suggestions on whether that's should be a big deal, little deal, or be careful of that one, that sort of thing?
We will go through all that with you. And I think what we'd like to tell you is probably to start out, the more restrictions, the smaller the pool is going to be. But if you have policies and school board policies in place, we also are respectful of that.
And we know that there's a teacher shortage and an administrator shortage. Is that having an effect on recruitment and placement?
Yes, I would say that. Sheila, how about you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's having a great, not just in Illinois, but across this country. The pool is getting smaller and smaller. I remember when we started out, to get 40 or 50 applications for one superintendent search was normal. Now, if we get 25, we're doing great. So yes, it has impacted the superintendent search process as well. And that's not to say that we don't still have good candidates out there that can come in and do the work and that you will be happy with. But the pool, just like the teacher shortage, it's gotten smaller.
And one last, if we follow your proposed timeline, are we in a position to get through have the first round of candidates be the most likely candidates?
Yes. Are you getting your search launched at the right time?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We always say there are 3 phases of superintendent searches, and phase 1 is what you would be in. You're getting a good head start on it. You're going to have your firm selected very quickly so that this process can begin, once the school year ends and you're wrapping up for this year. So that you are in phase 1 of the superintendent searches, and you should be able to wrap your search up in the 1st of December, I would think. Maybe even sooner, but that was honestly, what we have, when you put together a timeline, you want to give a board a little flexibility, because when we do fall searches, we've got the conference downtown, we've got Thanksgiving, we've got winter break, and so some of those things sometimes interfere with how quickly we can move, but getting done by the 1st of December should be no problem at all. Don't you agree, Sheila?
I agree 100%. Yep. And I think you are, and it's the best time because
It is.
that now is the time people are considering the move for the following year. So you're getting the cream of the crop, I like to say. You're in the top spot. And then the second spot would be starting in January. And then the third spot would be starting in early spring, late winter, March.
Okay.
And that's when we,
It's more difficult.
yeah, that's when we start to look at interims if the district is interested in that.
Right.
But no, you're right on target.
I do have another question.
One more question,
Yeah.
maybe.
Since you're nationwide, have you placed a lot of superintendents in Illinois?
The majority of my work, and I think Sheila's too, has been in Illinois.
Mine too.
Are they from Illinois, or are they from out of state?
Both, I would say, but I feel like there are a lot of good leaders in Illinois.
Okay,
And
well,
we're able
I
to-
just wondered, because
Yeah.
I didn't know if Illinois is a state that anyone would want to come to. Just saying, you know. Yeah,
Well, there's that too, right?
Yeah.
But we
A
haven't,
wonderful state. I can't wait to get back.
that's right, Sheila's one that's returning to the state. and-
says the person from Arizona, yeah.
But moving back in a few days, right, Sheila?
Yep.
Waited until it got
I'll
warm.
be back.
Yeah. But no, so we do get candidates coming to Illinois from other states. But also, I think there's a lot of good talent in Illinois that we work with and we know well.
Okay, thank you.
If that's all the questions, Dr. Nolan and Dr. Harrison-Williams, we certainly want to thank you for your interest in our district. We hope we're a district that you would be okay working with.
Yeah, we'd love to.
And we'll appreciate the time for your proposal and the time to come down here and talk with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Nice-
much.
Thank you. It's nice to
you.
meet you. Does the board have an idea on when they'll make a decision?
Well, it's on the agenda tonight.
Okay.
I don't know that will happen.
Okay.
We'll have to discuss whether that's going to happen, but very quickly.
It could
We
happen
wanna get
quickly.
this
All right.
process.
Well, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Okay.
Yes, we are. Thank you all so much again for the opportunity to present and spend a little time with you. I'm sorry I'm on Zoom, but I promise 100% of our time, both Ann and I, would be to help find your next superintendent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you all take care and have a good night.
You as well, thank you.
At least one. We have- Okay,
And I'm going to give each of you my.
Goodbye.
okay.
Bye.
And I think Dr. Walters is sitting in the audience. You may know her.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm glad Sheila got you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
Thank you, sir.
I said, I think you may know somebody in the audience. Dr. Walters. Is that-
Oh, I'm sitting, see you over there.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess if we are okay doing that.
Thank
And
you.
Some of you are still wanting to eat. You can go eat. Not, but
Are we still in open, or we go to
We're
close?
still in open. We're not going to go to closed. I was told we can't by our attorneys. So
Okay.
I asked that specific, I put it on the agenda, and then I asked for clarification, and I was told no.
Okay.
So we will take a break. We will not go into closed session, and then we'll come back and
Have a discussion.